Welcome into another edition of the Giant Overreaction, the Week 7 edition. New York Giants fall to the Philadelphia Eagles once again, 28-3. Somebody please wake me up from this nightmare. I'd like to welcome y'all into the rawest, realest Giants content on all of the internets in this small corner of the internet called Authentic and the Beard. Big shout out to all of y'all that hit that like button bright and early. We got a lot to talk about today, y'all. I told y'all on Twitter, dress up. Get into your all black because it's looking like the New York Giants season is completely over. Yet another loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. We talked about a lot of this on the pre-show, and this has just been a struggle that just seems to continue. It doesn't matter who's the head coach. It doesn't matter who is the general manager. And obviously at the quarterback position, things have not changed in the past 6 years, and it's time for the New York Giants to figure out a way. Today's going to be a bit of a slow burner, maybe a bit of a therapy session a little bit. We're going to recap this game. I got 3 Giant overreactions once we're done recapping the game. And we'll see where the New York Giants are headed. But it does seem like we are headed to a bad place right now. And I don't know how we're going to fix this. I think that Joe Schoen has dug himself and this organization into an extremely deep hole. But let's quickly go over this game real quick. Again, big shout out to the gang, all of y'all that pulled up bright and early in the building. My day ones, y'all know what it is. I see you, Michael Knight. I see you, Chris Peace. I see you, Dean Seven. Elias is here. Jay Jackson is here. My dog, Bluegrass Picker, is in the building one time talking. Eco is in the building one time. And a lot of people were in these streams just a couple of weeks ago when Daniel Jones was playing some fairly decent football, telling me that, keep that same energy after these next couple of weeks. And I'm definitely going to keep the same energy today. But I'm going to try to do it without being too harsh. But let's go off. Let's talk about this game real quick, which was just a tough game to watch. It's not like this game was close, but this game was definitely there for the New York Giants to grab it by the horns and get this victory. But unfortunately, we could not do that against the Philadelphia Eagles. Again, big shout out to all of y'all for being here today. All right, so this one kind of got off to a bit of a slow start in this one, right? Both teams go scoreless in the first quarter. The Eagles have still not scored any first quarter points this entire season. The Giants defense had 3 sacks, giving our offense some good opportunity and a nice window to be able to try to put some points on the board and maybe put the Philadelphia Eagles away early, which was one of the keys to victory that I had talked about during the preview show. The Giants started off in this game 0 for 6 on third down, and things did not get much better as the game progressed. The Eagles took a 7-0 lead in the second quarter after a huge run from Saquon Barkley. And you saw the fans were booing Saquon Barkley every time he touched the ball. And then when that 55-yard run happened, those boos kind of got quiet. You heard some stragglers in the building, right? Still trying to keep the boos alive. But it's only so often after a guy is breaking off these kind of big runs that you're going to not look like a fool in the stadium or in the stands chanting boos when this dude's running all over us, which was the theme of the day. And it was nice to see, if you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan especially, but a guy that I've been talking about is going to be a good replacement for Jason Kelce at the center position in Cam Jurgens, lead in that pin and pull and lead in that big 55-yard run with a nice block on the edge. Barkley punched the ball in the end zone for a 3-yard touchdown right after that. And the Philadelphia Eagles did not even pass the ball on that drive. It was 5 straight runs that they had, 4 of them going to Saquon Barkley. Kenneth Gainwell came in for a little quick gain, and the Eagles are up 7-0. They get the ball back. They're up 7-0 here, and they end up going for it on 4th and 3 from the 41-yard line, and Jalen Hurts drops an absolute dart on A.J. Brown, who was in single coverage with Nick McLeod. I thought that was one of the biggest mistakes of this game defensively because I thought the defense played a pretty decent game, but really a great throw from Jalen Hurts in a muddy pocket to drop it in the bucket on A.J. Brown for another explosive play to go up 14-0. And this is when I'm sure most Giants fans were looking at this game going, okay, this one's pretty much over. We don't have an offense that is built to come from behind on the scoreboard. We have not done that really at all this whole entire season. 2-minute drill. Giants try to move the ball down the field. They get a touchdown to Theo Johnson, and then we end up getting called for offensive pass interference on Theo Johnson. Comes back, and Dable ends up kicking the ball with 9 seconds left on the clock. I'm not too sure why he didn't take another shot at the end zone. There was also a mistake from Malik Nabers catching the ball on the sideline on this drive and not finding a way to get out of bounds to stop the clock when it was right there for him. It was definitely a rookie mistake on his part. Brian Dable's mismanagement of the clock On 3rd and short, he runs a quarterback sneak and is forced to call a timeout on that drive, wasted one of the 2 timeouts that the New York Giants had, got down to the red zone, and it was unfortunate to only come away with 3 points in that one. It was 14-3 at the half. 7 drives apiece in the first half for each team, 2.4 yards per play for the New York Giants, 5.2 yards per play for the Philadelphia Eagles. And the theme of Brian Daboll getting away from his bread and butter, that I always say that there are 2 types of quarterbacks in the NFL. There are those that need a rushing attack and those that don't. It is so apparent that Daniel Jones is one of the quarterbacks that obviously needs a running game. And Brian Daboll neglected that in the first half. Just 8 rushing attempts in the first half. 5 of those were to Daniel Jones for 20 yards. Just 3 rushing plays to our running backs. And we saw the success that we had with Tyrone Tracy in his first game as a starter, where he had over 120 yards. 19 passes in the first half for Daniel Jones. Really just an unacceptable game plan from Brian Daboll. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt last week for only giving Tyrone Tracy 3 carries in the first half. But when you're going back-to-back weeks here, I'm not sure what the goal is here with this offense, because we know that you cannot put this whole entire team on Daniel Jones' shoulders and he'll uplift this team to a victory. And we saw that in this one. It's all about the explosive plays in this game. Jalen Hurts was only 8 for 10 for 98 yards in the first half, 1 touchdown. He only threw the ball 4 more times in the second half. He was sacked 4 times. We were getting after the quarterback. Both teams, actually. 9 combined sacks is the most first-half sacks since 2010. But it's all about the explosive plays. The A.J. Brown play in the first half, the Saquon Barkley 55-yard run. The Eagles did not convert a single third-down conversion in the entire first half, and they were terrible on third down throughout this entire game. Saquon Barkley had more yards in the first half than the New York Giants' entire team, and that was the theme throughout. When the game ended, Saquon had more yards than the New York Giants. 75 yards rushing. He had 10 yards receiving on 1 reception in the first half, and the Giants only had 76 total yards in the first half. Both teams end up going 3 and out to start the second half, and I'm thinking maybe the Giants could get back in this game, down 14-3. And the Eagles end up getting the ball back, and on their second drive, with a couple of big plays from Saquon Barkley that led to Jalen Hurts converting on a 4th and 3 in the red zone, where we really had him in the backfield. I mean, this should have been a tackle in the backfield, but Jalen Hurts finds a way to be able to get the first down and pick it up. And just poor effort from the New York Giants defense that looked like they were getting tired throughout the day. A tush push later, Jalen Hurts is in the end zone. The Philadelphia Eagles go up 21-3. That's now 45 career rushing touchdowns for Jalen Hurts. That's the most, not just by a quarterback, but by any player as far as rushing touchdowns go in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history. Jalen Hurts is number 1 right now. Daboll tried to kind of salvage the box score a little bit there. You saw in the second half, trying to get back to the run with 3 straight runs. Then he goes to the pass to Daniel Jones. He gets sacked 2 times. The Giants are forced to punt. And it was just more Saquon in the third quarter. Jalen Hurts ended up converting on a 3rd and 7. And the Eagles were 0 for 7 on third down at this point. 4th and goal from the 1-yard line, another tush push for Jalen Hurts. And say what you want about Jalen Hurts and the way that the Philadelphia Eagles run the tush push, is effective. And teams know that that's exactly what they're going to do on short-yarded situations, and teams still can't stop it. We saw the New York Giants a couple of years ago trying to do their best impersonation of the tush push, and it didn't work. But it seems to work with Jalen Hurts at the quarterback position, a stronger type of quarterback. And I can't fault Jalen Hurts for that. Eagles went up 28-3, and this was when the New York Giants decided that they would bench Daniel Jones and bring in Drew Lock at the quarterback position with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Drew Lock's first drive, he went 3 and out. The next drive, he put a pretty decent deep shot on Jalen Hyatt. I'll say it was a little bit overthrown, a catchable ball, but I just liked it because you could see Drew Lock as soon as he came into the game. He had an overthrow across the middle to Malik Nabers. I mean, sailed over his head, maybe 2 yards over his head. But the emphasis to try to push the ball down the field as soon as he came in the game, I respect that. And honestly, I don't even think this needs to be a giant overreaction. I think it's time that the New York Giants should go to Drew Lock. I don't think that fourth quarter sample size was enough to see what Drew Lock is capable of at the quarterback position. 2 weeks ago, the Beard told y'all that it's time to put Daniel Jones on the bench. And I thought maybe the Beard was jumping the gun. A lot of people in the chat were saying, yeah, the Beard is cooking right now. And the following week, Daniel Jones played some pretty decent football, and that conversation kind of got quieted. But at this point in time, what do the New York Giants have to lose by putting another quarterback out there? I wouldn't even mind seeing Tommy DeVito get a couple of snaps. Hell, you could split snaps between Tommy DeVito and Drew Lock at this point. And we're going to get to it. There were some comments from Daniel Jones that really, for the first time in his career, I thought he completely said the wrong thing in front of the media. The Giants totaled just 119 yards. That's the fewest during the Brian Daboll tenure. They had just 10 first downs. That's also the fewest during the Brian Daboll tenure. It's the 5th time in 7 games that the New York Giants had 4 or more sacks. So we're seeing this defense galvanize and come together and be able to put this offense in position to be able to have opportunities to score and take the lead in these games. And this New York Giants offense has sputtered, especially at home, time in and time out. They came into this game averaging 16 points per game, and they leave this one without even a touchdown at home. And they only have 1 touchdown at home on the year, which is just completely unacceptable. I feel sorry for the people that have bought season tickets for the New York Giants at Metlife because it has been a pathetic showing, especially offensively over there. The 43 net passing yards was the 2nd fewest under Brian Daboll. And that shocked me until I remembered, the game against the Jets in 2023 where Tommy DeVito didn't even throw the ball in the second half and we ran Saquon completely into the dirt. The Giants' offensive possessions, this is, in my 6 years of covering this team, the worst I have seen from an offensive output. When you look at these drives, starting from the first drive of the day, going punt, 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 field goal, punt, 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 punt. 11 punts from the New York Giants in this game. I don't know if that's a record or not, but I can't remember a game where I saw the New York Giants punt the ball 11 times in a game. And Jamie Gillen wasn't even in this one. There was a backup punter, and both sides of the special teams from the Eagles and the New York Giants, as far as the kicking game went, was not that great on the day. And the Eagles offense didn't have to do much. Just a couple of explosive plays really won this game, relying on Saquon Barkley, who had a fantastic day. Their 70 net passing yards were the fewest for a Giants opponent since 2010. We're talking damn near 15 years. The Giants converted just 3 third downs in this game and finished 3 of 14. The Giants had not allowed more than 3 sacks in the previous 5 games. 8 total in this game versus Philly. And it almost seems like Daniel Jones, knowing that his cornerstone left tackle, Andrew Thomas, was not out there, was completely shell-shocked in this game, holding on to the ball too long. And even as a unit up front, this offensive line, without Andrew Thomas, did not have their best day. This was probably the worst day we've seen from this starting 5. We'll say starting 4 because no Andrew Thomas. The New York Giants were the only team in the NFL through 6 weeks that have fielded the exact same 5 guys up front on the offensive line. 1 guy goes down. I get it. He's a cornerstone piece. He's one of the best left tackles in the league. But 1 guy goes down. And that unit, in conjunction with the quarterback, who obviously is not decisive, completely falls apart. The Philadelphia Eagles won the time of possession in this one by 11 whole minutes. And this was just a pathetic performance. You know, I don't think that this was the best game from the defense either. Struggled to stop the run. Obviously, Saquon Barkley damn near ran for 200 yards in this game. Dexter Lawrence, 2 sacks in this one early, had a pretty decent game. That's 9 sacks on the season. He leads the NFL right now in sacks, and he's a nose tackle. That makes absolutely no sense. It goes to show you what kind of force that Dexter Lawrence is in the middle of this defense. And I honestly think, and I might be jumping the gun here a little bit, but I think that a guy like Dexter Lawrence is truly covering up some of the deficiencies that we have on the outside. That's not to say that Brian Burns is not playing well the last couple of weeks, but when you're just running outside the way that our edge rushers are, you have to hope that you have a guy like Dexter Lawrence in the middle of this defense. And if you didn't, it would look a lot different. On the opposite side, Nakobe Dean had a hell of a game, 11 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 2 TFLs in the game. And the pressure that they put on Daniel Jones had a lot to do with why this offense could never really get clicking. And Malik Nabers and company were just not good in this game. Wan'Dale Robinson had 6 receptions. He led the New York Giants. 6 receptions for 23 yards. That we're just not getting the same amount of yak out of some of these receptions from Wan'Dale Robinson this year. And I don't think that Wan'Dale Robinson is an issue, but I am the kind of guy that calls out. I try to be as critical as I can with this team because good is not good enough. And Wan'Dale Robinson is a good player. But does that mean that the New York Giants should not be looking at trying to upgrade the slot wide receiver position or possibly pushing Malik Nabers inside to the slot position to get more snaps? Absolutely not. Darius Slayton had 1 reception for 11 yards. And Malik Nabers had 4 receptions for 41 yards. Jalen Hyatt was not targeted much in this game. Drew Lock hit him on the sideline on that one throw that was a little bit overthrown, but those are the kind of ones that we want to see Jalen Hyatt catch. We feel as if Jalen Hyatt is the kind of speed, kind of wide receiver that you can't overthrow. And to see him kind of struggle to get down the field to make that catch in a pretty, tight situation for Drew Lock there with the safety, it was single high over the top to the hash. He puts a ball where only his receiver can get it, and we don't come up with it. Now, let's get off into talking about the man of the hour in this game. I wanted to kind of break down the game a little bit, allow some viewers to get up in here. Shout out to all of y'all for pulling up, rocking out with me today on this Monday afternoon on the Giant Overreaction Week 7 edition. But Saquon Barkley was absolutely incredible in this game. And I think I do have some statistics on Saquon. Let me see if I can't pull these up real quick, because for a guy that has played the way that Saquon Barkley has this year, I'm sure that John Mara is feeling a certain type of way right now, being that the guy that he completely wanted to be a New York Giant for financial, for business reasons, for productivity on the field, and it went against what his general manager actually wanted to do with Saquon Barkley. And we are going to revisit that conversation that happened on Hard Knocks. I do just want to get these statistics first pulled up, because the Beard was telling me all week that Saquon Barkley was going to put up 200 yards in this game. And I kind of thought that, not that it was impossible, but I didn't think that he was truly going to be inching near that number. And had it have not been for Nick Sirianni taking out Saquon Barkley in this game, he might have rushed for 300 yards. He had 100 yards in the third quarter alone. Saquon Barkley was magnificent in this game. And it makes me just think about the conversations that were being had about Saquon Barkley in the offseason, the conversation that Joe Schoen had with Frank Gore when they were at the Senior Bowl. And Frank Gore didn't have many words for him. He just said, but Saquon is like a guy. And Joe Schoen trying to plead his case to a running back that was in this league for a very long tenure, well into his 30s, right? That running backs, the data shows that running backs fall off a cliff at the age of 27. And then Joe Schoen went out there and drafted a 27-year-old running back for a bargain type of deal on the clearance rack in Devin Singletary, who barely had any carries in this game. I understand he's coming back from an injury, but Saquon Barkley, 17 rushing attempts for 176 yards, 1 touchdown. He was averaging 10.4 yards per carry. Now, I've been in conversations all throughout the morning, all throughout last night on Twitter, and I posted a statement on Twitter that might have been a little bit out there where I said, Joe Schoen convinced some of you dummies that Saquon Barkley, as a player not on the New York Giants, was a better thing for the Giants. Now, I don't care how we look at it financially, but there's no way that you could convince me, and I've been talking about this all year long. Shout out to Pat Leonard, who's the first person that brought it to my attention about the way that Joe Schoen has been playing checkers, not chess, where every time we add a weapon, we lose a weapon. So you bring in guys like Darren Waller. You have Saquon already on the roster. You lose Darren Waller. You allow Saquon Barkley to walk in free agency, and you think that just drafting a guy like Malik Nabers is supposed to supplement for what Saquon Barkley did and some more. Obviously, Joe Schoen has been building this team to be a contender. A lot of people have been trying to fool what this general manager in this front office has been doing and trying to fool themselves by thinking that, oh, but we're in a rebuild and you can't pay a running back that type of money when you're in a rebuild. But all the moves that Joe Schoen has presented from free agency through the draft to now obviously are screaming that they are trying to build a team that is contending for the now. They brought in 3 offensive linemen that all have contracts under 3 years. They paid an edge rusher $28 million a year in Brian Burns. You think that's a future move? This is not a team that is committing to the rebuild. This is a team that started smelling they shit and thinking it don't stink after the 2022 playoffs, after a win against the Minnesota Vikings, who really did the right move by parting ways with Kirk Cousins, bringing in a bridge quarterback, drafting the rookie quarterback, and doing it the proper way while trying to contend while you actually are committed to the rebuild. They brought in guys on the defensive side of the ball that can be future pieces for them. guys like Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and brought in a stopgap cornerback in Stephon Gilmore so that they could still field the best team they could possibly field this year. The quarterback goes down with a meniscus injury. He's out for the year, and Sam Darnold is playing some of the best football. Not some of. He's playing the best football in his entire career. And when we signed Daniel Jones to the contract, all these guys were available. You obviously could have acquired a guy like Sam Darnold. Baker Mayfield was out there. We saw Marcus Mariota yesterday come in for Jaden Daniels for the Washington Commanders and put up 3 touchdowns. We have not seen Daniel Jones throw for 3 touchdowns since 2019, right? Or maybe 2020. These guys come in, they're true stopgap bridge quarterbacks, and they don't cost $40 million a year. The decision to part ways with Saquon Barkley but sign Daniel Jones to this massive contract is obviously a big mistake. To see Saquon Barkley go out here, and I've told y'all all year, right? I'm rooting for Saquon Barkley. I want to see Saquon Barkley have a career that gets better from this point out. And I just said, just don't do it against my Giants. But honestly, there was a bittersweet moment in this game when Saquon is just going crazy in the third quarter, and I knew this game was out of reach. I didn't feel no kind of way. I looked at Saquon Barkley on that field, and I said, go get yours, man. You deserve it. This team left you hanging high and dry. And then they convinced fans that Saquon was the bad guy. So much that there's a running theme going on around social media where Giants fans call Saquon Barkley Snakewan. I was at the Commanders game when they played the New York Giants. The amount of jerseys you see in the stands that are Saquon Barkley 26 jerseys with a white piece of tape over it that say Singletary or that say fuck off or that say whatever type of insult about Saquon Barkley. Like we were really going to get the same productivity out of a running back like Devin Singletary. It was not only was it a mistake by the front office, but I think it's very gullible of our fan base to fall for that type of bullshit-ass rhetoric and actually think that Saquon Barkley did not want to be a Giant. After the amount of times that we had to see Saquon Barkley be the leader of this team, go up to the podium after a tough loss for the New York Giants and say, I want to be a New York Giant for life, it still wasn't enough for Giants fans. And we're going to get to it. There are a couple little segments here that I absolutely want to talk about. Let's start off with the John Mara video from Hard Knocks, where John Mara said he wasn't going to be able to sleep at night. And what I want you to pay attention to, because I had to go back and look at this clip myself, I want you to pay attention to the snarky, weasel type of demeanor that Joe Schoen is presenting in front of his boss while speaking on the best player on the offensive side of the ball for the New York Giants at the time.
What's the latest? Just on the Saquon thing.
I just got a text that Chicago's driving the price up and Philly's out. I don't know if that's true or not. Which I don't know if I'll make a couple calls. I don't even know if that's gonna happen, but
I have a tough time sleeping if Saquon goes to Philadelphia. I'll tell you that. As I've told you, just being honest. I've been around enough players, so but he's the most popular player we have by far.
Yeah.
Like, just look at how these gentlemen are sitting in that room. And I had the pleasure of actually meeting Brandon Brown this past week at the Maryland game that I was doing some film work for. And I didn't know he was going to be there. And I just seen him on the sideline. I'm like, oh, shit, that's Brandon Brown right there. Walked up to him, introduced myself, told him I'm a diehard Giants fan. He talked to me about, how they were out there scouting wide receivers and whatnot. We talked about Ty Felton a good bit. Cool dude. Really wanted to prolong the conversation with me. He didn't want to just, make that a very short, type of encounter. You could tell he wanted to talk more, but I didn't want, the people I'm working for to see me slacking on the job. But just look at Brandon Brown in that room. And I believe that's Tim McDonald sitting next to him. They have their heads down. It's almost like they're in a classroom giggling underneath their breath in a way as Joe Schoen is looking at them too. Clearly, they had a conversation before John Mara walked in the room, as if they're making the right decision if you're going to be a contending team in walking away from Saquon Barkley. Now, if you committed to the rebuild, I would have no problems with parting ways with Saquon Barkley. But if you're going to try to be a contender, the idea is to stack a bunch of good players until you have a great roster. I got fans in my mentions on social media They're telling me we didn't win games with Saquon Barkley, so it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that Saquon came out here and put up over 180 yards of total offense against the New York Giants because we weren't winning games with him either. Well, we're not winning games with Malik Nabers. We're not winning games with Andrew Thomas. We're not winning games with Dexter Lawrence. Does that mean part ways with them too? Because that kind of logic is completely flawed. It's clear as day that Joe Schoen and the New York Giants are trying to build around Daniel Jones for the now. Now, today, that opinion and that approach might have changed after you saw the way that they just got dog walked by a division rival, I guess you can call it, but we don't stand a chance against the Philadelphia Eagles. We have not been able to win against the Philadelphia Eagles at all in the past year. The Giants have lost 14 of the last 17 matchups against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Giants have only won 7 of the last 34 matchups against the Philadelphia Eagles, and now we're sitting at 0-4 at home this season and 0-3 in the division. I was having a conversation with a homie about where we stand as far as draft picks go right now. And last week, the Giants were not in the top 10, but there were like 6 teams on that list that were all sitting at the exact same record. And I'm like, but wait a minute. How many of these teams don't have a win within their division? There is no team right now in the entire National Football League that has lost 3 games and have no victories within their division. And this is a team that I think people should have saw the red flags early on. This is almost worse than I could have ever imagined, to be honest. I didn't think that the Giants would be playing this type of poor football on offense specifically. And I also didn't expect this defense to be as good as they have been through 7 weeks of football. But the fact that you allowed Saquon Barkley to come in here and completely own the New York Giants like this, that's an indictment on Brian Dable. That's an indictment on Joe Schoen. That's an indictment on Shane Bowen. That's an indictment on John Mara. And it's a huge compliment to who Saquon Barkley is. In the first quarter, Saquon Barkley had 6 rushes for 17 yards. I was like, okay, he had that one little nice run where he kind of ran for about 8 or 9 yards. I'm like, we're doing a pretty decent job. Got to the second quarter, he had 2 rushes for 58 yards in the second quarter. We got to the third quarter, he had 8 rushes for 101 yards. He doubled up every quarter. And then by the fourth quarter, they sat him down while he had 176 yards on 17 carries. Saquon was the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. The Eagles finished that game 1 for 13 on third down and scored 28 points. It's all about explosive plays, y'all. For my day ones, for my people that have been rocking out with me since the beginning of the season, how much have we talked about Warren Sharp and explosive plays, especially coming into this game? The Eagles had 8 explosive plays last week against the Cleveland Browns. None of them came from Saquon Barkley. In this game, Saquon had 3 huge explosive runs, the 55-yard run in the second quarter, the 38-yard run in the third quarter, and another 41-yard run in the third quarter as well. Barkley now has the most rushing yards through 6 games of any Eagles running back in the history of their franchise. And people are going to say, well, what about the offensive line? This is not the same offensive line from last year for the Philadelphia Eagles. They lost Jason Kelce to retirement. Jordan Mailata, their left tackle, came into this game injured, did not play. Mekhi Becton left this game in the first quarter with a concussion. These are backup linemen that are in there right now. Shout out to Cam Jurgens out of Nebraska. We knew who he would be. If you watched him, you knew that he was going to be at least a serviceable center in replacement for Jason Kelce. Saquon's 176 rushing yards is the second most versus a former team in NFL history. Cedric Benson is the only running back who had more success running the ball against his former team. He had 189 yards versus the Chicago Bears. And Saquon was going to shatter that number if they would have kept him in the fourth quarter. Because what would the Eagles have done in the fourth quarter? Just run the ball, run the ball, run the ball, run the clock out. And Saquon's 176 rushing yards are the most by a Giants opponent in the history of MetLife Stadium. These fans who have bought these season tickets deserve better. We're talking 15 years the New York Giants have never allowed somebody to come in here and rush for 176 yards. I thought that Mike Greenberg really put this in the proper context. Let me play this audio clip for y'all about Saquon Barkley here from Mike Greenberg on the Get Up this morning.
Here's the bottom line of it. Saquon's driving into the stadium. He sees a bunch of fans burning his jersey in effigy or whatever it was. I saw someone putting it like on a grill, like where you would otherwise put like cheeseburgers or something like that. I will say this. Saquon Barkley begged to remain a New York Giant. Saquon Barkley wanted to be a Giant for life. He just asked them to meet him halfway, maybe even a third of the way, and they made a very conscious decision to walk away. So to me, if you are a fan of the Giants who was burning Saquon's jersey yesterday, you don't get it and never will. And if you are Saquon Barkley, there will not be another game this season where I feel better for any individual player, where I'm happier that anyone else had a huge day, D. Wood, than I am for the day Saquon had yesterday.
Now, like, let's be real here. What he said, that if you don't understand that Saquon wanted to be a Giant and that team just did not want him to be a part of that roster, that you don't get it, is so spot on, y'all. Like, I always tell people up here that I'm not trying to make you change your opinion. I will try to present facts and I will try to present data that will make you understand why your opinion is where it is. And sometimes that leads to me actually figuring out, that my opinion might not be right in a certain situation. And that's me learning from my fan base here and from the family in my chat, right? But at the end of the day, if you don't understand that Saquon Barkley wanted to be a Giant, I have to say that you just don't get it. That's really just what it is. And I think Mike Greenberg said that very eloquently. And you can't word that any better. Let me get to a couple of these super chats real quick and we'll keep the discussion going on. I see all of y'all in the building. Big shout out to y'all after a huge loss like this. Just getting dog walked again by the Philadelphia Eagles, that you still want to show up and check out some New York Giants content. That means the world to somebody like me. Shout out to Talking Eco one time in the building with the $4.99 super chat. He says, I thought Barkley did not contribute to anything in 2022. He says that with sarcasm. I thought he did not have anything left in the tank. Shane better avoid Mara today. That's a fact. I mean, I hope that John Mara goes back and just looks at that clip, because honestly, that was very unprofessional of Joe Shane to be right there in front of his boss and be almost giggling at his thought of losing out on one of his best players, one of his best business decisions as a player as well. You can say what you want about Dave Gettleman drafting Saquon Barkley with the number 2 overall selection, but at least he had a clear plan in mind, which was, we're going to still build around Eli Manning when he did it. And at the time, I had no problem drafting Saquon Barkley at number 2. I've learned a lot since then, and I do understand that drafting a running back as far as positional value goes with the number 2 overall selection, utilizing a guy that you can, have the 5th-year option on, and he's a running back, which is not one of the most highest paid positions, is not that smart. But at the same time, the fans who think that a running back contract will cripple a franchise, we're going to get off into that as well. It's just ludicrous behavior. Shout out to Talking Eco, spot on. And honestly, this is a type of situation that goes to show you that groupthink and the power of numbers literally influences people to drastic measures. Because a lot of us were in a small corner that were speaking on this Saquon Barkley situation and decision that, man, if we're trying to compete here, why are we going to lose a weapon, add a weapon? Drafting a wide receiver with the 6th overall selection is almost as egregious as drafting a running back with the 2nd overall selection. And it just screams that you are trying to compete today. If you were trying to compete for tomorrow and for the near future for the New York Giants, you absolutely would have found a way to draft a quarterback. And we're going to have to wait a couple of years to find out if that was a major mistake, because who knows, with the way that Sam Darnold is playing, when J.J. McCarthy is actually going to see some significant snaps. With Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, when is Michael Penix going to be able to get on the field and be able to play some significant football? Both those guys were there for the New York Giants to draft at 6. Getting the second place prize in Malik Nabers is not a bad thing, because ultimately, when likely these guys are out of here as far as the front office goes, at least you have a wide receiver 1. And Malik Nabers was not happy after this game. He said, go look at the targets, go look at the tape. I was open. And, I haven't had a chance to look at the All-22 yet. It did not release before I came on air to do the Giant Overreaction here. I can't wait to see it. I'm going to look at that All-22 3 and 4 times and analyze what are we seeing down the field. But shout out to Talking Eco. This is a great point here, and I agree with everything you're saying here. I love the sarcasm as well. Shout out to Independent Outsider one time with the $5 super chat. He says, my 2 knocks on Dable this year. No kicker lost us a division game, and 2, no one noticed Andrew Thomas limping. I'm right there with you on the Andrew Thomas thing. The no kicker situation, I can't agree that it lost us a game, because even if you had a healthy kicker on the field that day against the Washington Commanders, you still end up losing that game 21-20. The Giants likely don't go for it on both the 4th downs, where one of those resulted in a touchdown. The other one was a drop by Malik Nabers. You're likely going to kick a field goal in one of those situations, and the Giants still lose this game. I can't fault Brian Dable for having, Graham Gano coming to the game, which to me looked healthy. I've shared the All-22 with you guys when Graham Gano looked like he got sniped by somebody in the 300 section, and he looked healthy as he was running down that field. But when you try to sprint like that, there is a possibility that you can actually re-aggravate an injury. It was a groin with Graham Gano, and we know that's tied to the hamstring that he ended up pulling in that game. And he's an older guy. I think Graham Gano's 38 years old. You can't be chasing after guys like Austin Eckler like that. But I do agree with the second opinion that you brought up here, Independent Outsider. And shout out to you for supporting the channel, my brother. You've been here rocking out with us for a long time. Big shout out to Keith Wilson one time in the building with the $4.99 super chat. He says, salute. Glad my Canes held me down because I knew New York would fail me on my actual birthday. Happy belated birthday, Keith. He says, glad I told my queen to get a refund on those tickets, man. That was a smart move because being in that stadium, I bet, was hell. Being around those Philadelphia Eagles fans. And by the time you got to the, mid-third quarter, from what I'm hearing from all my homies, that stadium completely cleared out with the Giants fans. I'm sure they didn't want to deal with the aggressive, and I'm sure the drunk and celebratory Philadelphia Eagles fans that were in the building. Congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm sure y'all are looking at the New York Giants, especially the front office, going, oh, what a boneheaded mistake to allow a guy like Saquon Barkley to walk in free agency and allow us to be able to sign a third playmaker. You could say a fourth playmaker on that offense if you include Jalen Hurts. And the Eagles can't get enough of it. They went out there and tried to get Jahan Dotson on a flyer here, traded a third-round pick for him, a former first-round draft pick from the Washington Commanders. It hasn't panned out that great just yet, but who's to say that, Jahan Dotson's going to fall off a cliff here? But unfortunate day for the Giants. It's a good thing that you're a Canes fan. And I'm sure for the people in New York that are New York Yankees fans and whatnot, I'm sure that's helping them salvage this L from the Philadelphia Eagles, man. Big shout out to Keith Wilson, man. One of my day ones out here rocking out with me. Shout out Mr. Mini Guy one time in the building with the $2 super chat. Says, yo, yo, yo. That's his famous yo, yo, yo. Another week, another L. Scratching my head. I'm right there with you, bro. I appreciate you supporting the channel, man, because this is tough times for the Giants fan base in particular. And for those of y'all that did have hope coming into this season, I feel for y'all even more. Because for me, I've tried my best to stay reserved, stay calm on the New York Giants, not fall for the trick bag that we're getting from a lot of people saying that this New York Giants team is going to come out here and surprise. And, we got the top type of wide receiver core that can make this offense move. Daniel Jones is going to have a career-type year after coming off of this ACL injury. I never saw it coming. And it's actually going to make me a little bit of money. I got a bet with somebody on social media that Daniel Jones, I don't know what he was thinking. He thought Daniel Jones, by the time we entered week 9, was going to have 20 passing touchdowns, and we are a far cry from that. But shout out Mr. Mini Guy nonetheless. Tough day for all the New York Giants fans out there. Let's tap in with the chat a little bit here, man. I did want to get through that first segment of the show real quick, but let's tap in. Let's see what y'all talking about here. I'll scroll back. If you've already stated something that you want to be answered up here, or just a statement that you feel needs to be reiterated, feel free to represent that in the chat. No problem. I'm gonna definitely be trying to highlight what y'all are talking about here. Tough day for the Giants. I see Raven Anderson. Maybe this is Ravon. You see, I try to put a little twang on it. He says, I care because we didn't give him the right offer, and the Giants could have offered him. They absolutely could have if you're speaking on Saquon Barkley. There's no doubt about that. Let me see. James Williams is in the building. He says, if we were a serious organization, Mara would have fired Shane, a.k.a. Mr. Crustable, today. Wow. Yeah, man, I do think that right now, Joe Shane is sitting on an extremely hot seat. And John Mara, I'm sure, couldn't sleep last night, and he's been thinking about the direction of the New York Giants. Ain't no doubt about it. Shout out Mike Jones in the building one time. Says, serious question. Was our first 2 offers similar, if not the same, to what he got from Philly? The first offer that I know about is from 2022 at the bye week. You look at the statistics at that time, Saquon Barkley was the #1 running back in the NFL in 2022 by the time we got to the bye week. The Giants literally ran Saquon into the dirt to a 7-1, 7-2 record, and then tried to kind of morph into a passing offense. And it showed you all the deficiencies with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position and the deficiencies within this offense. The other thing is the guaranteed money was not there from the New York Giants the way that it was from the Philadelphia Eagles. And they couldn't get the deal done. That's why negotiations happened. And Saquon Barkley said that when he countered that offer, they didn't bring back nothing to the table. Instead, they franchise tagged him. And even if you couldn't get the deal done with Saquon Barkley entering the 2024 season after you franchise tagged him once in 2023, but then ended up giving him a 1-year deal that was almost equivalent to the franchise tag, well, why not just franchise tag him again? If you look at the Devin Singletary contract with $9 million guaranteed, it's just a few underneath what the franchise tag would have been. And I know that the guaranteed money was throughout a 3-year contract for Devin Singletary. I understand that. He was on a AAV contract of $5.5 million. But in the end, it's going to cost you $9 million. Why not just franchise tag Saquon Barkley if you are truly committed to competing in 2024? Instead, Joe Shane was half foot in, half foot out kind of vibes, right? He did certain type of things as a business person that screamed that he was trying to rebuild. And he did other things as a businessman that screamed that he was trying to compete with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. It's failed miserably. It's failed worse than I ever thought it could have. Shout out G-Men 2011. He says, biggest rival, Saquon return, a game that really matters to the fans, and this team deserves this shit to us. Players giving up and quitting too. This is really bad. Yeah, you saw Deonte Banks on the Jalen Hurts late run on, I think it was a 4th down conversion, maybe a 3rd down conversion. I think it was their only 3rd down conversion of the day, where Deonte Banks just gave up on the play. You saw Malik Nabers when Drew Lock came in at quarterback and he had that ball that was a bit overthrown. The language and the energy completely just let down. I'm done with this shit type of vibes. Brian Daboll's going to have to do a good job holding this locker room together. Francis Moran says, is Daboll weak as an offensive play caller? I wouldn't say weak, but I think that he's challenged right now with this particular type of personnel, especially with what he has at the quarterback position. And I think that's why he probably went to Drew Lock in the 4th quarter to try to see if maybe he could get a little bit of a spark. And that's exactly what he told Daniel Jones. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit as well. Shout out Jaden. He says, Authentic spin some facts right now. Primetime 816 says, in the words of Keyshawn Johnson, just give Leak the damn ball. It's funny. I was going to bring up Keyshawn Johnson take from the summer. It was right around the time Hard Knocks was going on, where he pretty much said, like, he couldn't understand how the New York Giants went out there and paid Daniel Jones over Saquon Barkley and how much sense that did not make. And I was going to bring it back, but I thought it was a fairly, a very obvious type of point that we didn't need to reiterate today. Mike Jones says that Daniel Jones is the common denominator. We're tanking. Hopefully we do that right. It's around that time. You know, if you look back at the way that the Washington Commanders tanked last year, it was right around this time. You know, started off the year where Sam Howell was leading the NFL in passing yards, and some of the Washington fan base was being confused by the play of Sam Howell, not understanding that Sam Howell led the NFL in attempts and whatnot. It's been a poor year for the Giants offense. It's been a poor year for the quarterback position. Stephen DeLome is in the building. What's going on, Stephen? He says Waller is a $7.5 million dead cap hit and Singletary is a $3.5 million cap hit this year. And people are telling me positional value is why we didn't sign Saquon. No, hell no. I don't understand how people still think that about the running back contract. You just got to do a little bit more research. And I'm not sitting up here telling you I'm some salary cap guru or nothing like that. But if you think that $12 million towards Saquon Barkley was going to cripple the New York Giants, you got another thing coming for you. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets, says the Liberty too. Shout out to the women's basketball team. They just won their first chip. Shout out to them. That's a major accomplishment for them. And shout out to the people that are supporting them too, because women's basketball absolutely needs the support. Danny, year 6 duds is in the building, says, I'm so done with Daniel Jones. What an absolute horrible mistake it was drafting and re-signing him. The re-signing him is even more of a drastic mistake, right? Because you had enough data to be able to move on from him. And you chose not to. After declining the 5th-year option. For me, it was the Marcus Mariota play yesterday that really put the last nail in the coffin. Y'all know Marcus Mariota was the guy in 2022, exiting 2022, that I was clamoring for. I was like, this guy can run this offense. Look, Daniel Jones has 15 passing touchdowns and 7 rushing touchdowns. You mean to tell me that Marcus Mariota is not a better runner than Daniel Jones? Fuck out of here. Come on. Shout out Danny, year 6 duds. The ball walker says you better hope you actually get that money. Yeah, I know. He might try to duck, dip, dodge, dive, and all of that. Yeah, that's a fact right there. Ben Ayers says that changes will be made at the bye week if the same things continue. And, you know, I've been talking about the Giants need to be proactive. Don't be reactive. Don't allow the play of this offense or the play of Daniel Jones in the next couple of weeks try to convince you into a different type of situation. Be proactive. We need a new quarterback right now. Make the decision on that right now. Go into the offseason and figure it out. if you can get any type of trade value for Daniel Jones before the deadline, I would absolutely send him away for anything. Any player, any draft pick, whatever. Get rid of him. It's time. And I don't mean to, like, I'm not trying to be like, a hater on Daniel Jones or any of that bullshit, right? Like, I'm just trying to keep it real. The Giants have to be proactive in this situation. Big Dog Status says some fans really believe Daniel Jones was the reason for success in 2022. I don't know how they could do that. And, faith in something can trick you. And, the human mind is designed that when it is in fear or in a panic situation to protect the body. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Like, somehow they've been convinced that we've seen success with Daniel Jones in 2022, which that was all Saquon Barkley. We know what it is. Big shout out to Brett Carnahan one time in the building for the 199 super chat. He says, tough season, but I will still represent no matter what. Look, man, I was going through the hats today, and I was, like, going to wear, like, a different hat, not represent the New York Giants. I try my best, man. I try my best, but they're making it very difficult. D. Hall is in the building, says, you don't pay a 27-year-old running back that much with all the other holes we have. It don't matter. Saquon Barkley is not just a running back. He's a playmaker. And they convinced you too, D. Hall, that you can't pay a running back that much money, right? And if it's about all the other holes, why are the Giants trying to compete? If it's about all the other holes. Joe Shane said, I'm comfortable with this quarterback room. He's obviously drafted wide receiver in all 3 of the drafts that he's been here. He paid a top dollar for an edge rusher in Brian Burns over here to try to make this defensive line look like one of the best in the league. And it has paid off a little bit. The Giants do lead the NFL in sacks right now, right? He parted ways with Xavier McKinney on purpose and drafted a safety that he said could be a day one starter. Same thing that he said for Andrew Phillips at the cornerback position, who is playing some fantastic football. So what are all these holes? Depth? I can agree with that. They have definitely neglected addressing the depth on this team, offensive line-wise, to an extent. We have Aaron Stinney sitting on the bench that they paid some money to as well. But when you look at the starters across the board, I'm okay with the linebackers with Micah McFadden, Bobby Okereke. The weakness is in the secondary right now. When you have Deonte Banks as your only true cornerback out here and the other guys out there are getting burnt toast and coffee time every time they line up one-on-one, I get that part of it. But really, are there a lot of holes on this roster? Joe Shane has convinced this fan base that they have done a good job of rebuilding this team. If there are holes on this roster and you can't pay a 27-year-old running back, why are you paying a 27-year-old edge rusher? Somebody's got to make it make sense to me. Why can't we spend $12 million on a running back if we're competing, but we can spend $28 million a year on an edge rusher and $40 million on a quarterback? Geno Smith is making $28 million over there with the Seattle Seahawks. Brian Burns is not a quarterback. How can we afford to pay that type of money to an edge rusher right now if we're in a rebuild, right? But we can't pay a running back. Man, I would have respected Joe Shane so much more if he went out here. I mean, they've already been top 10 in salary cap spending the past 2 seasons. I would have respected him so much more if he went out here and just completely emptied the damn bank. Push these contracts into the future, restructure everything you possibly can, not that he hasn't already done that, to pay a playmaker like a Saquon Barkley. The whole thing in 2022 and 2023 was that teams were stacking the box to try to stop Saquon Barkley. Think about the dividends that could have paid for all your wide receivers on this team with Malik Nabers. I dare you to play too high with a running back like Saquon Barkley out there. I dare you to do that. So I can't agree with this. Rozelle the Great says, what up, Authentic? Shout out to the chat. Pay the plug and slap that like. Let's go represent that rebuild. Listen, man, if you want to hit the like button, hit the like button. But y'all know over here on Authentic in the Beard, we not in it for likes. We in it for life. Shout out to the family that been rocking out with us because this is more than, I saw a lot of content creators already with a certain theme of the way that they were titling their videos today. And all of those content creators getting hella clicks. And I made it a point today to not use that same theme because I'm not in this for clicks. I'm in this to leave a track record. I'm in this because I love the New York Giants. I'm in this because I like talking ball. I'm in this because I live in Washington, D.C., and there's not a lot of Giants fans out here. So my way of being able to bridge that gap is through the internet. That's why I'm in it. But shout out Rozelle the Great. Real recognizes real, my brother. I appreciate you all day. Shout out Chris Peace in the building one time. Chris Peace says, If the Giants go to Germany and lose to the Panthers, they should leave Shane, Dable, and Jones in Germany. It could not have been said any better than that, bro. If they go out there and lose to the Carolina Panthers, all hell's going to break loose. It's a great point you brought up there. Rozelle the Great says Saquon was never going to re-sign here. He wanted out once they paid DJ over him. Disagree on that. Saquon's still saying good stuff about Daniel Jones. Literally, as of yesterday, saying good stuff about Daniel Jones. He just wanted his worth. He would have took less money to stay here in 2024. Absolutely would have. I have no doubt in my mind. You got to think about, man, what that does to a player when you got to pick up your entire life and your family and move it. Not that far, and I'm sure that's why he chose the Philadelphia Eagles, because he's got experience being there with the Penn State, grew up there a little bit. But that's not easy. If somebody told me today, listen, we'll pay you to do content 15% more than you making right now, but you got to pick up all your shit and move from where you live at right now, I'm declining that, bro. It's not easy. It's not easy. Trauma's in the building. Trauma says, can we please fire Dable? We're going to talk about that a little bit here. We're going to talk about that. Trauma also said, fire Dable. He is boring as fuck, no energy. He is losing the locker room. I can agree with you on that. And I hold Dable to a high regard. I think he's a good coach, but you dropping facts right here. Rozelle the Great says, Dable isn't your issue. The issue is our quarterback. They don't believe in DJ, period. Rightfully so. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says, let's say it. That Banks draft pick is a disaster. I mean, I think that it was a bit of a reach on a first-round pick, and I believe they did trade up a few picks to get Deonte Banks. I think he can be a good cornerback, too, in this league. He's still a young player developing on the job. I'm going to take the push on that one, no Mets. But you definitely have a valid reasoning for what you're saying there. Shout out Malik Baker. This is a new name in the building. What's going on, Malik? Hope all is well with you on this Monday afternoon. Late on a real nice fall-like day here in October. At least a nice fall day like what we've been seeing the past couple of years, man, because we're about to get some nice weather here coming up the next couple of days here. Malik says, seats have to be hot for Shane and Dable. Offense can't get going. That's why he's the coach, and Saquon and McKinney looking like all pros, and Shane didn't even try to re-sign them. The McKinney thing, oh my God. Xavier McKinney has a pick in all but one game this year. He's looked fantastic for the Green Bay Packers. And even as the conversations went on during the Hard Knocks episodes, they didn't even mention Xavier McKinney. People kind of forgot about that situation, but that's looking crazy right now. Blackbird McKnight, another new name in the building. What's going on? Blackbird says Barkley had a field day. Absolutely did. Problem said after that Saquon demolition, I don't think this regime survives after this season. You know, I thought that after the 2022 season, Joe Shane and Brian Dable bought themselves an extra year, and I think that is diminishing as we speak. When you have performances by your offense like this, no passing touchdowns at home this year, that's not going to get it done. Shout out my dog Ben Dawson one time in the building, says, what's good, AATB? I'm late, damn it. You right on time, brother, as long as you're here in the building rocking out with us. Trauma also doubled down, said, bro, we need a new offensive coordinator. And he says Kafka is better than Brian Dable, which might be a thing. Kafka has the luxury of not being able to be the scapegoat for what has happened in New York, and I think that once he leaves the Giants, it'll yield well for him in, his hunt for a new job, whether it be as an offensive coordinator or something lower tiered for Mike Kafka. Big shout out to Mike Kafka, man. Talking Eco says, he says, I'm glad that Nabers called out Daniel Jones. Yeah, and he did it by not saying his name, but he was pretty much like, listen, man, I'm open. They're not getting me the ball. You can look at the tape. G-Man 2011 says, first time I'm really starting to question Dable. He looked totally defeated talking after the game, like he can't do what he wants to. He did. And when asked about Daniel Jones, I thought Dan Duggan asked a really good question. He said, it's been 3 years now, and you have struggled to be able to find the explosive plays with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position. What makes you think differently this year? And Brian Dable said, this was kind of a shot at Daniel Jones. He said, I think we have good enough guys around Daniel Jones to be able to create explosive plays. I think Brian Dable is kind of letting you know he is strapped at the quarterback position. Mike's in the building, says Giants are horrible. You ain't lying, bro. The Ball Walker says this team is probably better if we locked up Barkley, Love, and McKinney. We still could have made some other moves if we really wanted to. Yeah, I mean, you could have locked up Barkley, Love, McKinney, coming to this year, draft a wide receiver like Malik Nabers. Not saying that would make you a real contender or anything, but you might have been able to have a team that could have made it to the playoffs. I think the offensive output would have looked a lot better. But yet and still, the big mistake is Joe Schoen committing to not rebuilding this team and not stripping it down. Rozelle the Great says it's like playing Madden with a 66 overall quarterback and knowing you can't throw deep with this character. You know how that is. You have no chance. Jay Jackson says, do we ever tank right, though? No, we don't. Trauma says, why do you want Saquon so much? It's not about wanting Saquon so much. It's about the general manager committing to competing and allowing weapons to walk in free agency when you have committed to trying to compete. And then you're telling the fans, be patient, we're rebuilding this shit, when you're really not. That's really what it is. You know, for me, I'm the kind of person that if you're going to commit to the rebuild, let all of these guys walk. I ain't got no problem with allowing Saquon Barkley, Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, and anybody else that walked in free agency to walk if you're going to commit to the rebuild. But when you do this 1 foot in, 1 foot out type of situation, I think that's a major red flag and a major blemish on your tenure as the Giants general manager. And Trauma said he would have wasted them anyways. You're right about that. Lou Mateo's in the building. What's going on, fam? He says, yo, GM chose 99 yards and got benched. The owner wanted 177 yards and a win. Who's smart now? Yeah, it's crazy that a guy like John Mara, who has been making mistake after mistake as the owner for the New York Giants for the better part of 2 decades now, almost it seems, is making better decisions than our general manager. And his leash is getting really short. He got a couple of links left on that leash right now for Joe Schoen. Welvin says we haven't had a first overall pick in the Super Bowl era, but we've been the worst team in the league for the better part of 10 years. Crazy. And that goes to show you the lack of commitment to just understanding you have a bad team and continuously trying to salvage bad seasons. You're always going to end up with a pick in the draft that's obviously, not number one. Tough times. I don't see us getting a high enough pick this year either to go ahead and draft a guy like Cam Ward. It's going to be tough for us. Rozelle the Great says, I remember Authentic spending a whole stream on Mariota. Yeah, I talked about it a ton on social media, here on the channel. I thought that Mariota was a guy that could come in. They were paying him $7 million in Atlanta as a starter, and he fizzled out that year that they brought in Desmond Ridder. I think Mariota started just 10 games that year. His statistics were almost identical to what Daniel Jones was doing, and Arthur Smith was asking him to push the ball down the field, so the interceptions were obviously higher. His ADOT was over 10 that year, I remember. He hit the free agent market. I think you could have brought in a guy like Marcus Mariota for like $4 million. Baker Mayfield was out there as well. Gardner Minshew was out there as well. Jacoby Brissett was out there as well. You could have maybe made a simple trade for a guy like Sam Darnold. The Monday that the Green Bay Packers traded for Malik Willis, they traded a 7th rounder. That Monday, we had a giant overreaction here, and I spent the whole segment on Malik Willis. I thought that the Tennessee Titans were going to cut him, and he would be the odd man out, obviously, with Mason Rudolph and Will Levis over there. They ended up trading him for a 7th rounder. Like, why not? Why not, New York? Malik Willis was sitting there for us as a 3rd rounder the year that he was drafted. I think that was the Kenny Pickett draft. You can't take a flyer on a quarterback at all. Instead, you bring in an undrafted free agent rookie in Tommy DeVito, and that's the guy we're keeping in the 3rd quarterback position this entire time. It don't make no sense. Rozelle the Great says, why would a player walk when they know the owner is going to give them the only bag they have a chance of getting? Yep, right there with you. Admiral Finger is in the building. What's going on, dog? He says, only thing I can think of is Mara forced Shane to re-sign Jones to the contract we did. Shane then wanted Barkley out because he masked how bad Jones was, and they wanted to press the issue with Mara. If that's the case, that would be the only benefit of the doubt that I would give Joe Schoen. But I don't know how much truth there is to this. And it's unfortunate. We're probably never going to get the truth on if John Mara had a stipulation that they had to keep Daniel Jones. Don't know. Ben Dawson says it's a great time to inquire about Hendon Hooker or Michael Penix Jr. The Atlanta Falcons are not going to let go of Michael Penix Jr. Hendon Hooker would be a nice type of developmental piece to bring into New York, but I don't know if the Detroit Lions would be willing to part ways with him. Maybe they have a plan, a Jordan Love type of, development type of contingency plan for a guy like Hendon Hooker to take over the reins for Jared Goff when all said and done. And Jared Goff has been playing amazing football. I'll never forget a conversation I had on Twitter Spaces with Cop Hizzle and Entertainer Talking Sports, where I told them this was the year after Jared Goff had got traded to the Detroit Lions, and he put up some pretty pedestrian numbers. And I told them Jared Goff is a much better quarterback than Daniel Jones. And I told them about the plan that I had exiting 2022 to go out there and get a bridge quarterback. And they said the Giants have no choice other than to pay Daniel Jones what Entertainer called yesterday a stopgap contract. That is the typical stopgap contract at $40 million a year. And they ridiculed me. And fans were, obviously their fans in the chat on that Twitter Spaces, like, this guy Authentic is out of his mind. He wants to bring in Marcus Mariota or Baker Mayfield instead of Daniel Jones, who just went out here and won a playoff game. And I always make it a point. I'm a dude that I hold on to receipts. Call it what you want to. I've had people that have gotten extremely angry with me, called me names out of pocket for pulling receipts. Football is fun for me. I don't look at it as this too serious type of situation. So if somebody were to go and pull a receipt on me I'll give you a real receipt, that Daniel Jones is going to be a better quarterback than Josh Allen when all said and done, when we drafted Daniel Jones in 2019, I'm able to laugh it off. Because now that the data has been presented for 6 seasons, it took me 2 to 3 seasons where I was like, okay, this dude turned the ball over 19 times, or he fumbled 19 times his rookie year, lost 11 of them, 6 of them scoop and scored by the other team for touchdowns, came back the following year, had like 12 passing touchdowns, then the next year, 10 passing touchdowns, got hurt in every one of those seasons. I'm done right there. I'm done. That wasn't enough data for these people. And instead, because they got these large followings that obviously people are going to follow those narratives, I had people coming at me. You know how many fans of the New York Giants that I've lost? That they'll constantly make up other excuses, right? That Authentic likes to block people when he's wrong. That's bullshit. I'll block you when you call me out of my name. There are certain things where I come from you just can't say to another man, right? And bitch is one of them. You're not going to call me a bitch and we're going to be kosher and cool about it a couple of days later. I still got people that I considered homies that I talked ball with on social media that until they come to me man to man and have an apology for me, I got nothing for them. I got nothing for them. Sports should never take you that far out of pocket, right? So for me, these people, they make up these excuses of, I don't like Authentic because of this, because of that. The real reason is because I'm not a Daniel Jones supporter. That's why people will say, oh, Authentic has garbage content. I put my foot in this content. You can be critical of it and say maybe it's not your cup of tea, but listen, you're not going to come up here and call my content garbage. There's no way the amount of work, the amount of times we've raised this bar over here on Authentic and the Beard that somebody could pull up and say this is garbage content. You can say you disagree with it. That's cool. That's why I'm here. I've had people on social media recently tell me that, I don't always agree with Authentic. And then they say another statement. I'm like, bro, like, we should not always agree. The family that I have built in this chat, in this corner of the internet, we don't always agree, but we keep it cool. We all respect each other. And sometimes more than not, we learn from each other. I'll see somebody pop into one of these streams and say, oh, you forgot about this. And then now I got to add that to the data. And that makes me a better person. And I hope that the content that I'm putting out there makes y'all a more knowledgeable fan, because I'm doing a lot of research. I'm looking into this team. I'm watching the All-22 every week. I'm living New York Giants football week to week. So it's funny how the tables have kind of turned now, especially even on Bleacher Report. When I got the Bleacher Report, there was no cut cards. I'm going to tell y'all what it is. Daniel Jones is an average quarterback. I don't care what any beat reporter tells you. I don't care what a former New York Giants player tells you. Daniel Jones has put out the productivity of an below average quarterback. So me calling him an average quarterback is actually a compliment to him. And I have enough respect for him as a man to not come up here and bash him and call him trash and call him garbage and attack the man. I attack the player and I critique the player. And some people, they're not grown enough to understand that. And then emotions get involved. And now it's, hey, fuck Authentic. I can respect it. I was built for this shit. Ain't no thing. Shout out Rozelle the Great one time. He says, Jones did what any one of us would do. It was up to the owner and GM to say nope. But our owner, Mara, I know 1,000% pushed DJ on Joe. Doesn't absolve Shane of his inept picks, but they re-signed him. I don't know for 1,000%. I think he made his case. If I look at the data that I have with the Saquon Barkley situation, it looks like John Mara is the kind of person that could try to influence you. But within that conversation, he never said, listen, we got to bring back Saquon Barkley. He said, I'm going to have trouble sleeping at night. And now, forget trouble sleeping at night. John Mara is not sleeping. And I feel for him. Everything that he has tried is not working. And now you try to let a younger general manager come in who really doesn't have the experience necessary or the resume to be able to run a franchise like the New York Giants, a billion-dollar organization, is in over his head. And it's unfortunate. John Mara has tried a bunch of different ways. He tried to get out the way this time, I think, and it still has not worked for him. It's unfortunate. D-Nice77 says, good football teams don't pay a below-average quarterback $40 million per year. Talk to him, bro. Talk to him, bro. That could marinate. The Illa's in the building. What's going on, fam? The Illa said, yup, every move in that draft was to try to piece together a winning team. Absolutely. Look at how much Joe Shane is drafting for need. He's not drafting the best player available. He's drafting for need. Every draft. We lose Xavier McKinney. Well, second pick, we're going to draft ourselves a safety. You lose Darren Waller or a pass-catching weapon, we're going to draft a wide receiver. We lost to Dory Jackson, got him back. We're drafting a cornerback after that. Saquon Barkley walks in free agency, we're going to draft Tyrone Tracy at the running back position in the 5th round. Darren Waller retires. Oh, got to fix that. Even though we already drafted Daniel Bellinger, spent the 4th round on him, bring in another one. Here comes Theo Johnson. Every year, the same exact thing. And I don't know why they expect the results to be any different. I don't know why. Yeah, I see you, D-Nice. I see you. Yo, I like that D-Nice spam that comment because that needs to be seen. Rozelle the Great said, authentic. Doesn't Mara have to okay his bank being spent like that? Of course he does. Of course he does. But multiple times he has said that he's trying to get out the way and allow these guys to do their job. You know, he could have signed off on Saquon Barkley and said, man, fuck what y'all talking about. Right? We keeping this player. I'm the one who writes the checks here. But he didn't. He allowed Joe Shane to do what he does, even after Joe Shane ridiculed him, and you saw it in the clip. Trauma says, horrible offensive coordinator and play calling and execution from the wide receivers. Absolutely. It was terrible. And it doesn't help when you don't have a quarterback that can make all the throws. Cutter Bang is in the building. He says, what's up, bro? I'm not going to lie. I think signing Daniel Jones was the biggest mistake, but not bringing Saquon back was a good move as much as it hurts me. He's a running back and injury prone when he was here, and it's hard to predict. All players can get hurt. The guys who don't, shout out to them. Saquon Barkley tried to battle through them injuries, man. He had a high ankle sprain, came back in 3 weeks. And yeah, he was a guy that was getting hurt. But that also you have to put some negligence on the general manager in this situation for not putting the proper offensive line around Saquon Barkley, not just Daniel Jones. And like I said before, Cutter, like, if the Giants were committed to the rebuild, I got no issues, 0 issues letting Saquon Barkley walk. None at all. But when you tell me or you show me with all your actions you're trying to put out a team out there that's going to win games, it to me doesn't make sense to allow all these players to walk. Shout out Mike Jones representing PG County in the building, man. What's going on, fam? Oh, Journey says he's a Giants fan in D.C. Big shout out to Journey one time in the building. My dog's in here representing, man. I appreciate y'all. All right, let me catch up to the chat because the chat is flying today. Shout out to all of y'all that are in the building, rocking out with your boy today, man. It's a tough day for to be a New York Giants fan and for the Giants organization. Got to highlight my homie Stan one time. Big shout out to Stan one time. Stan always bringing me the best of the best nuggets, and I've yet to reveal a lot of them because we haven't even got to the Daniel Jones segment of this stream yet. But Stan says all 22 shows Malik pointing to himself and Slayton being open while running a route. It's tough. I saw one from Malik too where he ran a post down the middle and the offensive line didn't hold up. Yeah, it's not a good day to be a Giants fan, Stan. I don't know if we're reeling you back in a little bit, Stan. I know the Colts experiment kind of went a little left. Maybe if we can draft Cam Ward, we can get Stan back in blue one time. We'll see, man. Big shout out my dog, though. That's my dog right there, Stan. Big shout out to nephew. Mike Jones says, I saw something saying we're projected to have $70 million in cap next year with our projected roster after cutting Jones and Gano. That's probably true. I saw that even before those cuts, the Giants were right around the middle of the league as far as salary cap dollars. So we should have some money to mess around with next year for sure. The Illa says, the thing that killed me about letting McKinney walk was the fact that the secondary had built some chemistry. And he was the captain. He was the leader of that secondary. That's another good point. TJ Francis says, we need a fresh rebuild and not trying to rebuild and win at the same time. Draft Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe and build out from there. Yeah, and I think the tough part about this is you really can't just clean house now because of some of these contracts that you have. You can obviously part ways with Daniel Jones with the out happening at the end of the season as long as you keep him healthy. But as far as, some of the cornerstone pieces, you got to keep those guys on the roster. And Andrew Thomas is another one who's dealing with the injuries year in and year out. I think it's now 3 seasons that he has dealt with an injury. It's why I don't see a path for the New York Giants being able to get back to competing, not in a 2 or 3 year window. This is going to take very long. Shout out to Dean one time in the building representing with the $5 super chat one time. Says this whole Daniel Jones thing has been a never-ending nightmare since he was drafted up until that terrible extension. I hope it will be over now. I've tried to convince myself, Dean, that maybe it's possible that Daniel Jones won't be back next year, but I'll believe it when I see it. Because for 3 years now, I've been thinking, next year we'll have a new quarterback. It'll feel good. Those games where Tyrod Taylor was playing quarterback for the Giants, and I can't control this. Your feelings and your emotions, you cannot control, right? If you feel a kind of way, right, it is what it is. You can fake it as much as you want, but I'm honest enough to tell y'all that in my heart of hearts, when Tyrod Taylor came to play quarterback, my Giants fandom was rebooted. I felt great going into those games. I remember Tyrod Taylor quoted the Jay-Z line from Reasonable Doubt, faced with immeasurable odds. Like, I was like, let's go. I'm standing up during the game. We get back to the Tommy DeVito, Daniel Jones thing, and it's right back down. And I don't control that. That's just the feelings. That's just the way I felt. But with Daniel Jones at the quarterback position, it is so difficult for me to invest myself as a New York Giants fan in these games and root for the team. And literally be up like, here we go, game-winning drive on the line. Here goes a window of opportunity for the Giants to take the lead. I don't care anymore. And it has all to do with this quarterback. I'm honest enough to admit that. Red X3R0's in the building. What's up, fam? He says, Malik Nabers hates it here. LOL. He even said before the draft, we have no quarterbacks. He cut his stream when asked about the Giants, and when he was drafted, he didn't look happy. And people said, he's tired. It's the morning, the night after the draft. These dudes wait their entire life to hear that with the 6th selection, the New York Giants select me. And you mean to tell me Malik Nabers is not going to be happy because it's early in the morning? I remember, I'll never forget this. We talked about this on the stream. He's on the phone. Brian Dable and them are telling him, yeah, you're going to be a New York Giant. He put the phone down. He looked over at his family and said, I'm going to be a New York Giant. And that was that. There was no cheers. There was no hugging, no nothing. He stood up and he walked down that long-ass aisle. They gave him the number 1 jersey, and then you saw him kind of look a little bit excited as he walked on the stage. Why would you be excited? Think about the other teams and the other situations that he could have landed in. Imagine you sitting there as Malik Nabers and the Chargers are on the clock with the 5th pick and you like, they ain't got no wide receivers. The whole Quentin Johnston thing didn't work out. I'm about to go over there and play with a real franchise quarterback in Justin Herbert. Nope. Joe Alt gets selected. Of course Malik is feeling some kind of way. Shout out Nick B in the building one time. He says, why not take a flyer on Russell Wilson? Denver basically paid most of his salary. All the moves Joe is making are smacking us in the face. Great point. They told Russell Wilson that if he were to come to New York, they wouldn't guarantee him the starting job. And honestly, I think that's why Mike Tomlin had to go back to Russell Wilson as a starting quarterback, because I bet you there were some kind of stipulations there when he first got there. Like, yeah, you're going to be the starter. And what he looked like losing his job to injury. I thought Justin Fields played fantastic football. 10 total touchdowns, 1 interception. And shout out to Russell Wilson for acknowledging that during his post-game speech to the media. He gave Justin Fields big props for putting that Pittsburgh team in position to be able to go out there and win a game and be competing within their division. And I didn't think that Russell Wilson was going to be able to play good enough ball for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I thought it was a mistake from Mike Tomlin, actually. So I got to eat crow on that because Russell Wilson went out there and played a fantastic football game yesterday. And the Pittsburgh Steelers put up over 30 points in that game. And that would be he would have been a great bridge type of quarterback. And you could have drafted your quarterback in this draft with Michael Penix and J.J. McCarthy right there, have him sit for a year, rock out with Russell Wilson, and then transfer the keys over to the young boy. That simple. Giants be overthinking stuff, man. Mike Harris says, do y'all want Trey Lance? I mean, it can't get any worse. Trey Lance, he's just not an NFL quarterback currently. So I would say no to Trey Lance. Let me tap in with some of these super chats. I mean, a chat like y'all. Let me see. I'm at 206 on the chat. It's damn near 218 now. But I see y'all. Sebastian, I see you. Big salute to Sebastian. Rozelle said, can't mess up 5 and 7. Yeah, you can, right? Kind of crazy on that one. RedX3R0 says, I don't understand the narrative that it was Daniel Jones that led us to the playoffs. Saquon Barkley literally carried us to the playoffs until his shoulder injury, and then we started losing games. Facts. Trauma doubling down on Dable. I hear you, fam. Shout out my dog Lucas one time in the building from across the pond. Says you get better by addition, not restocking. Whew. I know that's right. Shout out Lucas one time. Justin says the Eagles ran the ball to the right side of the field, had success to set up the deep ball, and their offense was clicking on all cylinders yesterday. They did. And we were moving Brian Burns around a little bit. Saquon's his first big run, came on the left side when Brian Burns was out of the game. And a beautiful pin and pull type of play there. Good design up front on the offensive line to have a lead block route in front with Saquon Barkley. And, yeah, he turned on the wheels. Shout out to Anthony Harris one time, says, Authentic, I think New York should trade for Faker or Massage Watson. Give me no to Deshaun Watson. You're not going to trade for Baker Mayfield for cheap right now. Baker Mayfield already had his payday. We had our shot at Baker Mayfield. Would have been nice. And Baker Mayfield's a solid quarterback in the NFL. Corey Pate is in the building, says Bank just gave up mid-game. He quit mid-play going to Hurts. He is getting lost in the L's now. Yeah, man. Big time. Big time. Big time. And let me tap in with these super chats. I see the one from Joe. Let me see if that's the newest one. Yeah, big shout out to Joe Winograd with the $10 super chat. Says, what's up, Authentic? Appreciate you for all you do for us, man. Keep it up, bro. Sending love. Now that my workspace is unionized, I intend to pay that dough forward. Man, salute to you, bro. I definitely appreciate you supporting the channel. Y'all know that definitely goes a long way over here with me and the homie The Beard one time. And, yeah, it just makes popping up doing these streams that much easier. I appreciate you, Joe. Salute to you. You've been rocking out with us for a long time. Shout out to Talking Eco one time with the $1.99 super chat. He says Tyrod was the bridge quarterback Giants fans deserved. And that was the plan from the start. You know, I thought Joe Shane was doing some really good stuff when he first got here, declined the fifth-year option to Daniel Jones. The first guy that he signed was Tyrod Taylor, a competent quarterback who, you know, definitely has his fair share of injury issues as well. It would have been real nice to enter 2024 with Tyrod Taylor as a stopgap and bridge quarterback. Shout out to Talking Eco, man. You've been rocking with us for forever. Appreciate you, my dog. Shout out to Amrit Dhaliwal with the $9.99 super chat. Says, I'm not mad or angry, just sad, bro. Yep. I feel you. I expected some of this. I expected this. And I got to remind myself that, you know, stay even. And don't let this team ruin my week. Enjoy football while it's here. Bad Giants football is better than no Giants football for me because at least I get to watch around the league and see what real teams look like and see what real franchises look like and see what real development looks like. And, you know, continue to assess this team until they get better. But shout out Amrit. Appreciate you, Amrit. Another one that's been rocking out with us for a super long time, man. Appreciate that $9.99, my dog. Shout out to Formula Red one time with the $9.99 super chat. Says, Shane said, if we can't trade up, we are rolling with Jones. I have no sympathy at all for the front office. They made their bed. Now they must lay in it. We knew Jones was trash, but they didn't. Clown emoji. I hear you, brother. They look terrible right now. They look terrible. And honestly, I can't wait till we get to the bye week when in the past Joe Schoen has spoke to the press. That's going to be definitely an interesting piece of content. I'll make sure we have a live stream up during that day. Joe Schoen is in over his head right now. And, a lot of Giants fans kind of fell for the bait when we beat the Seattle Seahawks and didn't realize that we were just a bad team and that the Seattle Seahawks aren't that good of a team themselves. Had won games against the Patriots, the Bo Nix Denver Broncos, and the Skylar Thompson Miami Dolphins. That's not that impressive. I definitely agree with you on this one, Formula Red. Salute to you. I appreciate you supporting the channel, my dog. D Hall dropping in with the $4.99 super chat. Says, say we get Cam Ward. Can this franchise turn it around just like the Texans and the Commanders? Yeah, I mean, it would help. It starts all up front with the quarterback, man. They've addressed the trenches. If they could get a guy like Cam Ward to come in and at least for the next 2 years have a pretty serviceable offensive line with Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, Jermaine Illuminor out there, I mean, I think that's a recipe for success. You got a wide receiver 1. I think you could spend a little bit more capital drafting a guy in the 2nd, 3rd round. A couple of my Maryland dogs definitely are people that I'm thinking about. Ty Felton, Caden Prather, another one maybe in the later rounds. Yeah, I really think you can get this thing going in the right direction. We'll see if the Giants are going to be sellers at the trade deadline. I don't know what they're going to do because they've already committed too much draft capital and too much dollars to positions that they deem valuable. And now I don't think you can part ways with those decisions. I think it's a little bit too late. But shout out to the homie D Hall, man. I appreciate you supporting the channel. That definitely means a lot. Let me see what else we got here. I saw one that stood out. Trauma said, sorry to break it to you, but Jones going to be here next year. It's the only shot that they have at the out. And I don't think that it's an impossible situation that Daniel Jones will be here next year. I can only cross my fingers, put my hands together, and pray to the football gods that we move on. It's our shot. If he's here next year, he'll probably be here the year after that. And then maybe that Archie Manning thing is real. Cutter Bang says, I think DJ makes our defense effectively worse as well. Saquon Barkley was pretty bottled up at the beginning, but when your quarterback goes 3 and out all day, your defense gets gassed, especially our best player, Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, and they lose motivation. I saw this defense quit in this game in the 3rd quarter. Offense just not doing nothing. 11 punts on the day. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And let me just scroll back up. Shout out to the homie Schizoid asshole one time in the building. He says, every move this team makes is going to either seem like a mistake or pointless as long as Daniel Jones is our quarterback. I 100% believe that, and I will until I'm proven 100% wrong. I don't blame you, dog. I don't blame you because this defense looks like they could be a part of a competing team the way that the defense has played throughout the year. This offensive line seems the exact same way. And yeah, I know the quarterbacks were sacked 8 times on the day yesterday, but, I want to see the PFF numbers to see how many of those are actually on the quarterback. Because to me, it looked like Daniel Jones was just holding the ball a little bit too long. I definitely believe you, man. I rock with you on this statement. It's very true. Chris P says, if Jones is here in 2025, the league should make Mara and Tisch sell the team. D-Nice77 says, this franchise will continue to stink up the joint as long as Jones is the quarterback. Shout out to Eagles fam in here trolling. I would imagine this is trolling. He says, breaking. Joe Schoen plans on trading Brian Burns to Philly for a 3rd and a 7th. Big win for y'all, Sam, man. Salute to you, brother. I appreciate you being here rocking out with us. Let me see what this one says. Strider's directing this at Chris P. Says, love you, bro, but you sound like a Cowboys fan who want JJ to sell the team, Jerry Jones to sell the team, but he won't fire himself. Love you, bro. I feel you. Shout out Strider one time in the building. The ball walker says PFF gave the pass blocking from the offensive line good grades. I saw that. Almost everyone was over like a 65. I did see that. Didn't get a chance to dig deep into the numbers, but looks like the offensive line had a decent day. All right. So let's see where we at. Carlos Marte is in the building. That's a new name. Says rather have a decent defense and a great offense than a great defense and a below average offense. I'm right there with you. 59 Ways to Groove representing says Dable is proving a point. Could be. The one thing I think where he's not doing that is, allowing Daniel Jones to throw the ball down the field, forcing him to do it, to prove that we're struggling doing that. But I feel you. I see it. J Moss 3607 says, Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders, who do you prefer? I prefer Cam Ward. I think Shadur is probably the better pure pocket passer at this moment in time, but I like the dual threat capability that Cam Ward brings. At times Cam Ward can look lazy in the pocket, and I just love his demeanor. He's a calm guy. He can go out there and throw an interception. It does not faze him. Love the way that he manipulates the pocket. Love how when he scrambles, he keeps his eyes downfield. I think Cam Ward would be perfect for New York. His comments after the game when he was dapping up one of his teammates and he said, Ninja, I know John Mara looking at that one like, I don't know about this guy. I don't know if he's going to be the face of my franchise. We'll see. And damn, big shout out to Lucas Aiken, man, with the huge donation to the channel, man. I appreciate you sending that in, man. The $79.99 Aussies, or whatever we want to call them here. Lucas says, the fifth-year option was Joe's biggest mistake. DJ shat the bed and got injured that year. Who was available for 2 firsts? Lamar Jackson. One of our picks was number 24. We would have traded 2 first picks for May. We could have had Jackson. I'm glad you're bringing this up, Lucas. There were people in the Giants community that when the Baltimore Ravens were having issues with the negotiation with Lamar Jackson, were saying they wanted nothing to do with him. One person in particular, this dude, the Mage, who I don't think has a podcast anymore, but he used to podcast. And he said he would compare the Daniel Jones statistics to Lamar Jackson's and say, I don't see the difference in these 2 quarterbacks. And listen, like not to insult anybody, but you have to have a very low level of football knowledge to see Lamar Jackson and see Daniel Jones and be okay with taking Daniel Jones over Lamar Jackson. At times, there are times I want to say that Lamar Jackson is the best quarterback in football. I know we got Patrick Mahomes. He hasn't been playing that great as of late, but he has a good enough defense and even though the stat box might not say it, Patrick Mahomes is still out there making huge plays to put his team in position to win games. Right now, to me, it's Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes at the top of the league. Patrick Mahomes is still number 1. And then I got Josh Allen at number 3, Joe Burrow at number 4, and then whoever else you want to put after that. Jared Goff is making a great case to be a top 5 quarterback right now. I don't understand why people would shun a guy like Lamar Jackson. But then again, when it comes to New York and the culture that's in New York with the blue-collar type of environment, and a lot of people might not say it, but there are a lot of people that prefer a white quarterback in New York. That's clear as day on social media. And I think that's going to present an issue when it comes time to draft one of these quarterbacks coming up this year, because the 2 top candidates here are Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward. For me, go out there and get me the best players that can put out the best productivity on the field. I don't care where you come from, what color you are, none of that. What your name is, who's your father, none of that. It don't matter. Go get the best players. And I don't need some goody two-shoes quarterback who's going to go out there and play average ball but say all the right stuff in front of the media. I don't care about that. Shout out to Lucas, man. You already know me, and I already saw the beard bigging you up. We appreciate this donation. And you, over the years, pun towards the beard, you have dropped in and gave us some healthy donations like this, bro. And I got my Lawrence Taylor signed helmet right over there. I got the program that's signed by Mario Manningham from the Super Bowl. Lucas, we always appreciate you over here, man. You've been one of them ones, bro. We definitely appreciate you. Salute to you, bro. Hope all is well with you. I don't know what time it is over there. I'm sure it's not the ideal time to be checking out Giants content, but we've always appreciated your support over here with this channel. Big salute to you. All right. Big dog status. This will be the last one, then we'll go off into a couple of more segments here. Nobody's bashing Jones when the statements they're making about him are true. Yeah, and I think people get that confused. And Chris Peace can vouch for this. I always put up the Floyd Mayweather video where he's like, hating on what? Last time I checked, like Daniel Jones ain't been doing too much. What are we exactly hating on? Chaz G says, let's be honest, which is what we love to do over here. If Jones was black, they would have called him a running back 5 years ago. Instead, they say he has heart when he takes off running instead of scanning the field. His brain can't process fast. We know this is true. If Daniel Jones was Jameis Winston, he would have been ran out of town. We know that. Let me try my best to enunciate this the proper way. Elias Wiskovich, shout out to Elias with the $4.99 super chat one time, says, want to say the same night Shane watched the running back he let walk run all over him, the quarterback that he told you'd be back up to Jones just cooked the Jets defense. It's crazy. Talking about Russell Wilson here. And the other part of it is that they had to bench Daniel Jones against the Philadelphia Eagles. It's all a nightmare situation, man. Shout out to Elias one time for sending in that $4.99 super chat, brother. Means a lot, bro. That's a good point right there. Hyphen Wade says, I can't say they don't care about race, but it's about character and how people perceive you. I need him to just do better, and I need ownership to start to ask what really matters. It's facts. It's definitely facts right there. That's such a great point right there. Like, I'll never come up here and tell you that the Giants are a racist organization because I don't think that that's factually correct. But this point right here about character and also what people think about that character and what character means to an organization and its fan base. There are absolutely people in the fan base that deem race a reason why they won't like a player, especially when he's not producing. But that also speaks towards the character that's going to represent the New York Giants. And that's unfortunate. Lucas says that Lamar Jackson went 2 picks before Will Hernandez. That's the reality of it. That's twisting the knife, Lucas. That hurt. That definitely hurt. Yeah, that definitely hurt. It's tough. The Giants have just made bad decision after bad decision quite too often. But let's get off into it. We talked about Saquon Barkley and how he just came up here and completely destroyed the New York Giants. I think it would only be right if we talk about the quarterback here just a little bit longer before we get off into these Giant overreactions. I told y'all this was going to be a slow burner. Shout out to all of y'all for sticking around for a stream that might go a whole entire another hour. We'll see how it goes. Let's briefly talk about Daniel Jones' performance on the day. Now, Daniel Jones was 14 of 21 for 99 yards. He was sacked 7 times, no touchdowns, no interceptions, a quarterback rating of 77.3. Daniel Jones has not thrown a touchdown at Metlife since the Colts game, y'all. When we clinched the playoffs in 2022. It has been that long since Daniel Jones has thrown a touchdown at home. 0 touchdowns at home this year. Since signing his big contract, Daniel Jones has 8 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Daniel Jones is the only quarterback to have 0 passing touchdowns in 6 straight home games since 2000. We talked about his struggles at home. Some people on social media told me that there's no problem with Daniel Jones at home. He's only played a couple of games at home. He'll get it together. Thus far at home, Daniel Jones has had a quarterback rating of 60.8 with 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And on the road, he has 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions with a passer rating of 106.7. The red zone percentages from the New York Giants and their efficiency at home and away are so drastic. On the road, the New York Giants are scoring in the red zone 63.6% of the time. At home, they are scoring 12.5% of the time. Daniel Jones has not scored a touchdown at home in a game that started after 7 p.m. since November 11th, 2020. That is now 1,440 days ago. There are a list of players that have more passing touchdowns than Daniel Jones does at MetLife since the start of last season. Zach Wilson is one of them. Zach Wilson has 6 touchdowns at MetLife. Daniel Jones has 0. Aaron Rodgers has 4. Tyrod Taylor has 4. Josh Allen has 3. Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Tommy DeVito, and Sam Darnold each have 2. Jacoby Brissett and Patrick Mahomes. Tim Boyle, Jordan Love, Trevor Siemian, Geno Smith, Marcus Mariota, Matthew Stafford, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, this list just goes crazy. Mac Jones even. And Desmond Ridder, and last but not least, Bo Nix, all have more passing touchdowns at MetLife than Daniel Jones does since the beginning of last season. Saquon Barkley has more touchdowns at MetLife this year than Daniel Jones does. Brian Daboll says that Daniel Jones will remain the starter. I saw earlier today on social media, shout out to Talking Giants, one time they put up a poll that says over a third way through the season, what would you prefer if the season ended today? The options were keep Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, fire Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, fire only Joe Schoen, fire only Brian Daboll, and I mean, these numbers in this poll are in drastic favor of keeping Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. 66.8% of the people who voted said that they want to keep Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, that have been attached to this quarterback that has been playing poor football since he signed that contract and really never showed us anything before signing the contract that warranted giving him this big of a deal in the first place. It never made any sense. And I won't sit up here for an hour and rag on Daniel Jones. He has not played well enough to remain the starter for the New York Giants, and I think it's time. Just move on. You paid Drew Lock $5 million to come here to be the backup quarterback in case a situation like this occurred, whether it be an injury or whether it be poor play from the quarterback position. I think it's time to put Drew Lock in at the quarterback position. It's been tough. Shout out to Dean one time with the $5 super chat. Says authentic. You're living up to your name for real, bruh. There are heavy racial undertones when it comes to this New York quarterback shit. Mara is stuck in the past. And it's been like that. You know, the New York Giants are, if not the only, one of the only teams that have not drafted a black quarterback. And like I said, I'm not going to sit up here and pin straight racism on the New York Giants organization, but I am one that won't shy away from talking about the touchy conversations that a lot of people don't want to admit. And when you bring things like this up on social media, you'll notice that it's never black people that will say, "Oh, you're race baiting." It's never black people that are going to say that. That's not a term within our culture. And I think people say that to just avoid the inevitable, to avoid the obvious, that it does have to do with character. I forget who that was saying that earlier. It has everything to do with character. And the New York Giants still don't deem a player that has that look, that speaks that kind of way, as somebody that can be the person that represents the New York Giants organization from a character standpoint. But times have changed. They'll do it at wide receiver. They'll do it at running back. Saquon Barkley was the face of this franchise, so I can't sit up here and say that the Giants are a racist organization. I can't say that. But yeah, there are undertones there. And this draft, I'll say this, when the New York Giants draft their next quarterback, it's gonna speak volumes. It really will. And we'll see. Shout out to Dean, man, for sending in that $5 super chat, man. That means a lot, especially on a conversation like this. And salute to you for rocking with me, man, and recognizing, bro. Real recognize real. I can already see it. Let me see what else we got here. Chaz G says, I thought Mara wanted to move on from Jones, but Joe was steadfast in the goofiness. Even the assistant GM looked deflated when Joe was pounding the table for Jones. I can't put this in Mara's lap. And I'm kind of there with you. It looked like Brandon Brown was trying to convince Joe Shane that Daniel Jones ain't the guy. And then he had to kind of sit them down and reiterate, look, y'all, this is what we're doing. I know y'all don't think he's the guy, but this is what we're doing. So I don't know for certain, but I lean more towards where you are, Chaz G. RedX3R0 says, I swear if we pick Ewers or Beck, then yeah, the Giants might be stuck in the past. It'll prove a lot. It's going to speak volumes, man, like I said. And I really can't wait until we get to the draft time to see what the Giants do and to figure out where we're going to be picking, most importantly. And if they're going to do this again with this quarterback situation. Shout out Malik Baker, who says, man, I'm glad this convo is being had and exactly why we are more likely to end up with Beck or Ewers rather than Cam Ward. If history, gives us any type of data into where the Giants are going to move into the future, they're going to avoid or find an excuse to not draft Cam Ward. And I truly believe that. Lucas says, back in the day, I would agree on black quarterback take, but not these days. Yeah, there is a bit of circumstantial evidence that shows that the Giants just didn't have a chance to really draft the right quarterback either. Through the Eli Manning years, when black quarterbacks were becoming more prominent in the NFL, and now more than half the quarterbacks that start for NFL teams are black, the Giants had their guy. So they missed the opportunity to be learning on the job of, hey, the game is shifting towards dual threat mobile quarterback, which I don't know, maybe you can blame God on this, but the way that genes and DNA is set up, a lot of the dual threat quarterbacks seem to be black dudes. It's just like when you see these baseball dudes coming out of Puerto Rico, Cuba, wherever else, these Latin American countries, right? They breed them over there because that's all they do. And it's in their DNA to a certain extent. Same thing goes for the triathlon, the guys who run all these miles in the Olympics and whatnot happen to be from the same type of region. And quarterbacks who are dual threat that can run, throw, have strength, all of that, it just so happens that they happen to be black dudes. And the Giants missed that conversion. They missed it because they had Eli Manning here, one of the most durable quarterbacks. And that's not to say that the Giants can't draft whoever they want at quarterback, but just pick the best guy for the job. Don't allow a Heisman winner in Lamar Jackson to be overlooked because of the stipulations that have been labeled upon Lamar Jackson. I had a conversation with this dude. I'm trying to remember his Twitter name because he does have a podcast. It's like Turks Men or something like that. And he was calling Lamar Jackson a running back like 3 weeks ago. And I said, I ain't argue with him because I'm not going to argue with somebody who thinks like this. Dude's calling him a running back, and I say, bro, that's a spit in the face to Lamar Jackson, and that is extremely disrespectful to call a guy who has won the MVP twice, pushing for a third MVP this year, has led the NFL in passing touchdowns. To call him a running back is extremely disrespectful. He came back and he responded. He said, that's not disrespectful. He's a better runner. And I let it go because I'm not going to argue with people that's not ignorance. That's stupidity. Ignorance, I can give you the benefit of the doubt if you just don't know. But when you have the information presented in front of you and you still double down on those type of conversations and use that type of rhetoric, it is absolutely stupidity. And I don't understand why people still giving Lamar Jackson that kind of bullshit. Lamar Jackson has now proven that he's one of the better pocket passers in the NFL and can do it all. He can do it all. And I wish nothing but success for Lamar Jackson so that he can continuously succeed. And hopefully, when his career is all said and done, it ends with a Super Bowl trophy. He deserves that with the kind of scrutiny that he took entering the draft process and people trying to label this guy a running back, a wide receiver. And now we're talking about a top 5 elite quarterback that everyone who had those takes was completely wrong on. It just goes to show you how stupid some people are, man. Like, they just overlook what's right there in your face. Lamar Jackson didn't win the Heisman for no reason. Stan says more like upstate New York, New Jersey, and the islands in terms of blue collar. That's true. Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Queens been ready for some culture at the New York Giants quarterback position. That's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah, you know what it is. There's a ton of fans in those regions you named that are still thinking that way. Big Dog Status says, I don't trust Shane to get the right quarterback. It's crazy because his own son went to him on Hard Knocks and said, Dad, you only get one opportunity at this. Trade up and go get Jaden Daniels. And people was probably looking at his son crazy at the time. And now you see Jaden Daniels going out here. He's been the Pepsi Rookie of the Week for 5 of the 7 weeks now. He's one of those guys. And it's good to see that that injury is not going to keep him out too long. It doesn't look like it's going to be a too severe injury. Let me tap back in with the Super Chats. I do see that a couple more came back in here. SOS Archives is in the building one time. Big shout out SOS Archive with the $4.99 Super Chat. Says it's so sad we never had a black quarterback drafted and how Daniel Jones gets 100% starter over Tyrod and Russell Wilson. I always thought that was a weird thing. You know, they brought in Tyrod Taylor, and after 2022, Daniel Jones had a bit of success, even to the point where in training camp in 2022, Brian Dable had asked Wink Martindale to dial back the blitzes, bro, and let's not put as much pressure on Daniel Jones because he's not looking good out here. And in return, Daniel Jones started to light it up in camp a little bit. Then we go through 2022. People are giving Daniel Jones, you know, some unrighteous credit as to the success of the New York Giants in 2022. So that when we go into 2023, we can't even think about Tyrod Taylor as a starter on this team. Shout out to Emery Hunt from CBS, who early was saying that if Daniel Jones can't get his shit together by week 5, Tyrod Taylor will absolutely be the starter on this team. That was the first year. And he said that Tyrod Taylor was a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, and people lighten up his comments. He's a man of dignity to not go in there and fight with those fans because he's a better man than me. I'd have been in there talking my shit. And Tyrod Taylor never truly got a shot at being the starter for this team. When he finally got a chance to play because of injury, clear as day, he was the best quarterback on that roster. Right there with you, SOS Archive. Appreciate you donating to the channel, bro. That means a lot. And he sent in another one with the $1.99 Super Chat this time. Says, I wanted Haskins over Daniel Jones being an OSU fan. And I do, you know, I still have my notes from pre-draft 2019. And I looked at Daniel Jones as just as good as a quarterback as Dwayne Haskins was. I was not high on Dwayne Haskins. But I also thought that we didn't need to reach at quarterback at 6 in that draft. You had paid Eli Manning $20 million to come back the following season. You could have pushed drafting a quarterback into the next season. And the 2020 draft class is the one that is considered one of the best draft classes in the history of the league. Instead, we rushed the process. And that was a glaring mistake by Dave Gettleman because you drafted Saquon Barkley the year before, and I know the Giants didn't win a lot of games, but you did that to try to aid Eli Manning in another year. There was no reason to pay Eli Manning the $20 million to come back in 2019 if you indeed were going to try to commit to the rebuild and draft a quarterback with the first overall selection. And then they went and drafted DeAndre Baker, I believe it was, with another first-round selection along with Dexter Lawrence. I think we had 3 first-round selections that year. I'm pretty sure that was 2019. It's just been egregious mismanagement by the New York Giants for far too long. Far too long. We're pushing a decade now. Let me see. D-Night77 says, when your quarterback can't throw touchdowns, he's a running back. And that label would be more suitable for Daniel Jones, but I still respect him enough to not call him a running back. But I hear you, bro. I definitely hear you. And the chat is going on fire right now. Shout out to Codename Pizza Jr. one time in the building. I never seen this name in here. Welcome to the fan, bro. Says, funny how Geno Smith and Tyrod Taylor are the best quarterbacks to suit up for the Giants since Eli Manning retired, but none of them got a shot. Codename Pizza Jr. has a point here. You know, Emery Hunt came into a Twitter space one time and talked about the 2017 New York Giants team and how Geno Smith was leaps and bounds above Eli Manning in that camp. But the Giants had no choice but to try to start Eli Manning that year. And he said that that is what led to the benching of Eli Manning from Ben McAdoo, is because in camp, Geno was just that much better. But then the fans cried about Eli Manning's streak, gave John Mara hell for it, and Mara caved in. Honestly, you could have went with Geno Smith as the bridge quarterback from way back then to now until you found your right quarterback in the draft. And then maybe you're drafting a Justin Herbert. Maybe you're drafting a Joe Burrow. But the Giants tried to rush the process. I love those because this is facts right here, man. Welcome to the fan, my dude. And we got one more from John, and then we'll get off to the Giant overreactions and get y'all up out of here. Big shout out to John one time for the $10 super chat. He says, what are your thoughts on still seeing Daniel Jones guiding Nabers to the correct spots to line up? Is he a slow processor or just doesn't give a shit attitude? Also, outside of Dex and Drew Phillips, this defense can't tackle. I'll give Bobby Okereke the benefit of the doubt here as a good tackler. Yesterday was a good day to say we can't tackle. They didn't look good yesterday. I will give you that. Now, thoughts on Daniel Jones guiding Malik Nabers to line up? It doesn't bother me really that much. He's a rookie wide receiver. I know he didn't just get here. He's been studying his playbook for a long time, but who's to say what kind of stuff is being implemented week in and week out for the New York Giants? Unless I could go in and look at the all-22 tape and see that they have already ran these formations and these play designs, I really don't know. But it doesn't bother me that much. That's what your quarterback is there for. There are plenty of times we've seen quarterbacks line up wide receivers in certain instances and vice versa. I mean, Kadarius Toney, a guy who is known for being a bit of a slacker when it comes to the playbook, in one of the biggest moments in his and Patrick Mahomes' career, down in the red zone, he was the one who signaled to Patrick Mahomes, here it come, and ended up getting a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So I'm not sure, John. I'm not too sure. But I definitely appreciate you supporting the channel. John been rocking with us since day one. Big shout out to John. I appreciate you, my dog. All right. Let's get off into some of these Giant overreactions here, man. I appreciate all of y'all being extremely active in the chat. I love the conversations that I'm seeing amongst y'all and amongst each other. That's amazing. This has been one of the best streams for me. I'm going to keep it real with y'all. But also one of the most frustrating at the same time with the way that the New York Giants continue to go out here and play the same type of lackluster football. Now, for those of y'all that don't know how the Giant overreaction works here, we're going to put up 3 statements on the screen. There's one more thing I want to bring up, too, before we go off into these Giant overreactions here. Listen to Daniel. When I told y'all earlier in the stream that this is the first time I heard Daniel Jones in the media really not handle it the right way with what he said, I want y'all to listen to what Daniel Jones said to the media after the game when they asked him about the benching situation for Drew Lock.
I continue to prepare and try to play as well as I can. Dayball can, it's his team and up to him to make those decisions. Obviously, I believe in myself and believe, in this offense. So I'm just going to focus on myself.
Did you guys have some conversation when he made his decision, you and Brian?
It wasn't much of a conversation, no.
What did he say to you then?
Just said he's going to go with Drew, looking for a spark. So that was about it.
Daniel Jones said, I'm going to continue to focus on myself. That's not what you want to hear from your quarterback after you paid the dude $92 million guaranteed. And I thought that was a poor decision from him. You could tell from the video he was extremely bothered with being benched by Brian Daboll in this game. But to say that I'm going to continue to focus on myself is a bunch of bullshit. The right thing to say in that situation would have been, I'm going to continue to try to contribute to this team and get better as long as I'm a part of this team. Whether that's being the backup, holding the clipboard, whether that's being a starter for the New York Giants, or whatever. But to say you're going to continue to focus on yourself I was telling Stan this when we were texting earlier about this game. Like, that's some spoiled ass bullshit right there. And that's not what we expect. But this feels like the relationship with Daniel Jones and his coaching staff is kind of coming to I can't say a halt, but it's about to implode. And you can see that with that statement right there. And before he said that, you can tell he was going to try to attack Brian Daboll, and the thought registered in his mind, but he kind of was like, let me not go there, and said, Brian Daboll is going to do what he wants to do with this team. It's his team. That's not what you want to hear out of your quarterback. Yeah, and Bald Walker says this, and I thought about this as well. You hope he was taken out of context there, but that did seem different. And that clip, it was only, I gave y'all the whole clip as much as I saw. It was from SNY videos. You hope, but you got to know what's going to get clipped up. You cannot say, I'm going to continue to focus on myself. You never in any context can you say that. But if we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt, I mean, I guess you could say hopefully it was taken out of context. Yeah, I'm just seeing what y'all saying. I'm taking it all in right now, as far as what Daniel Jones just said right there, and just seeing what y'all saying. Saquon Barkley had more yards than our entire offense is crazy. Chat going crazy. I'm taking this moment in, y'all, just for a second before we get off into these giant overreactions. SOS Archive said 6 years of this guy is criminal. It really is. Matthew Fernandez says, my super chat says it all. And I didn't see that one. Shout out to Matthew Fernandez one time. With the 199 super chat, he said, tired of being tired with this quarterback. I know that's right, Matthew. I know that's right. It's Twilight Zone type shit right now. It really is. Appreciate you supporting the channel, my dog. Chaz G said that Saquon had nearly double Jones' passing yards, but on the ground. It's crazy. Big Dog said, I'm trying to figure out how this guy be the first in the building and last one out. Put in all this work and the results on the field are still terrible. Come on, bro. You know, this NFL quarterbacking shit is not easy. And sometimes you can try as hard as you want, and you won't get the results. And that's where I don't fault Daniel Jones in that regard. Yeah, Mr. Zoe says it best. You still need talent. And that part you got to blame on the organization. Greg Cole says, as a Commanders fan, it's hard to feel sorry for y'all after beating us with DeVito last year. I know, bro. I know. And DeVito put up 3 touchdowns against y'all. Daniel Jones has not done that since he signed a contract. He has not put up 3 touchdowns. Shout out to Ayo Sheed one time with the 199 super chat, just showing some love one time. I appreciate you, fam. I definitely appreciate you, my dog. Adam Costa says that DJ is first one in, last one out, same result. Yeah, when you're in a results-based business, it don't matter how hard you're working. You know, I'll take a guy who gets better results and doesn't work as hard in the locker room. It's all about the results. Kareem Yee, one of my day one, says, you know how the 49ers found themselves a starting quarterback with the last pick in the draft? It's by using draft picks on quarterbacks. Bars. Schizoid says he hasn't thrown 3 or more touchdowns in this decade. Yep. Last time was in 2019. I feel like, wait a minute. In the Saints game, didn't he throw 4 touchdowns? I think he threw 4 in the Saints game, which was Kenny Galladay's first year. I believe that was. Lucas says it's not just talent, it's mindset. DJ doesn't have a killer mindset. We talked about that on the last preview show where we talked about gamers and we talked about guys with the it factor, right? And we got the only quarterback in the entire National Football League that does not have the gamer attitude and the it factor. Unfortunate. Shout out to SOS Archive with the $4.99 super chat. He says it's hard to keep blaming Jones because we know he's ass, but why the general manager, coach, and owner think it's okay to keep playing him is malpractice. Ain't no way around that, bro. Ain't no way around that. That's a fact. I appreciate you being active today on the super chats, SOS. That definitely goes a long way, brother. Salute to you. Adam Costa says, no quarterback draft assets in 6 years. If we had a young quarterback here, we feel different about this year. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Codename says he threw for 4 touchdowns multiple times his rookie year. I don't know what happened to him. Yeah, he had 3 games where he threw for 3 touchdowns or more in his rookie season. He had 3 against the Jets, at least 3 against the Jets, at least 3 against the Lions, and then he had 5 against the Washington Commanders in, what you could argue is his best game as a pro. Chaz G says, what's sad is our next quarterback won't be given a leash at all because we're so over our current blunder. That's another good point. That is another good point. And we could do this all day. Y'all know we could do this all day. Let's get off into these giant overreactions. We're going to run through these real quick. We're at the 2-hour mark right now. We'll run through these quick. Spam your votes. This is how it goes down for those of y'all that are new here. We're going to put 3 statements up on the screen individually from social media. All of these come from social media. And if you think that the statement on the screen is an overreaction and you don't agree with it, put an O in the chat to represent that you think it's an overreaction. If you think that the statement on the screen is accurate, put a U in the chat to represent that you are taking the under. That means you agree with the statement on the screen. And if you need a little bit more time to think about the statement on the screen, you can put a P in the chat to represent that you are going to be taking a push. Let's get off into this first giant overreaction. So I had tweeted out that Joe Shane fooled a lot of Giants fans into thinking that we were a better team without Saquon Barkley. And I saw a couple more responses to this one. This one came from Taylor Made Baker. He said, the biggest trick was making us care about the money out of Mara's pockets. I just thought that this was such a great statement because too often, and I'm at fault for this as well, us as fans get to counting pockets just a little bit too much and worrying a little bit too much about the salary cap, when in reality, it's not our money. Saquon Barkley signed a 3-year, $37 million contract with the Philadelphia Eagles. It had an $11.6 million signing bonus, a $26 million guarantee, and the AAV on the contract was $12.5 million. Now, a lot of people will tell you that signing Saquon Barkley would have meant that we could not have signed our offensive line. And Justin Pugh has a really good breakdown on this where he debunks that and lets you know that that is completely false. The Giants signed John Runyon Jr. to a $10 million per year deal at 3 years. Jermaine Illuminor was signed 2 years, $14 million. That's $7 million per year. Greg Van Roten was signed for $3 million on a 1-year deal. Brian Burns was signed for $28 million on a 5-year deal, $28 million per year. So if you add that up, it's $48 million per year for all those new guys, when Saquon Barkley was going to be 12.5 of that $48 million per year. The total cash on those contracts, if those contracts are played out, is $187 million. And the Saquon Barkley contract with the Philadelphia Eagles, which would have been more than he would have signed for the New York Giants, would be just $37 million. I completely agree with this statement on the screen, and I can only represent it with a U. If I was in the chat with y'all, I would be representing the U one time. And I see the Bald Walker put the U up. He said, we were so pressed about the cap when it's not our money, and teams like the Eagles show us constantly that you can manipulate the cap, which is exactly why Saquon Barkley and Devin Singletary have the exact same cap hit this season, and they take up the same exact cap percentage of their team salary cap. Chaz G said it's an excellent statement. Big Dog Status says, big U. Adam Costa says, if you don't draft a guy, you don't have a bridge. You just have a bad starter. John says he agrees with the statement on the screen. He's taking the under. Howie Roseman said, Joe Shane, you suck at your job by signing Saquon on top of all the other contracts he already had. They had already paid Devonta Smith. They had already paid A.J. Brown. They had already paid Jalen Hurts. And still found a way to bring in Saquon Barkley. Dean agrees he's taking the under. Adam Costa's taking the under. Adam Costa said the Giants will be investing in quarterbacks this offseason. And Mr. Zoe said, Adam, no shit. That's crazy. And being a New York Giants fan, you never really know. D. Torres says he's taking the under. Chaz G says, I don't care how much a billionaire paid to assemble a competitive team. He's spending ad money anyway. Red X3R0 is taking the under. Hyphen Wade taking the under. Substantial evidence drives this point home. This is sickening, but this is the business, I guess. Matthew Fernandez and Chris Peace both taking the under, along with Talking Eco, who says also understanding Mara as an owner, he would not have minded paying more for Saquon than the O-line. Absolutely. Big facts right there. My homie, my dog, 1T is in the building one time. What's going on, fam? He said he's taking the under. Pressing about cap when it came to Saquon is ridiculous. Shane took it personally. Don Devine, a bunch of U's. Lou Mateo is taking the push. I don't understand salary cap and don't pretend to understand cap. Not my money, not my pockets. Mr. Zoe says, Daniel said, fuck y'all. Yeah, I got my money. I like that. Isaiah Rogers says, DJ sucks so much money any quarterback in the draft will be an upgrade. Agree with you there. Deaton Shelton says he's taking the under. Shane doesn't want to kick money down the road. Gettleman did it way too many times. Finding the balance would be the proper way to do it, especially if you're committing to competing. Kareem Yee's taking the under. He says a lot of fans only cared when it was Saquon and said it's the market when it was DJ. That's a fact. Welvin says the money out of the NFL's pocket, not Mara. Real Cold G is taking the under on this one. Lucas says he's taking the push because Giants have made mistakes in past with contracts. Look at the dead money each year that could have paid for Saquon. Whew, good point right there. Malik says that's me. I made it to the big screen twice today. Bruh, I don't care if Mara got to spend a billy. We just want the old glory days of winning back. I'm right there with you. You can empty out the piggy bank if it means that the New York Giants are going to win games. And Malik says he's taking the under. Royal Money Entertainment taking the under. John says, is it all Joe, though, or is Kevin Abrams still the money guy? Not too sure. Sani, I believe that's how you say it, says, overreaction. If Saquon gets hurt being injury-prone, as we know, we will be saying we dodged a bullet. That's true. But as it stands today, Saquon Barkley is the leading rusher in Philadelphia Eagles franchise history through 6 games. I want to say he's number 1 in the NFL in rushing yards. He might be number 2. I got to check the updated numbers. I remember Derrick Henry was coming into this week as number 1. Kevin the PRF says it's an overreaction. There's really fans that care about owners' pockets, ? Even after multiple failures, they making out like gangbusters. So there are fans that care about how the money is spent. I don't think they care specifically about how much money a owner has in his pockets, but they care about how the money is spent. I'm one of them. I'm guilty of that. I do care. I'm like, are we spending $28 million on Brian Burns? Well, you better go out there and get after this damn quarterback. So I'm one of them. I'm guilty of that. Let me see. Big Dog Status says, bruh, Jones is injury prone. Mobster Music is in the building. What's going on, dog? He says, Big U. 1T said, what bullet did we dodge? Chaz G says, facts. Joe was in his fields and we lost the heart and soul of this team and future Hall of Famer over it. And if he gets a ring in Philly, ooh-wee. I know that's right. The Illa says, I just wouldn't sweat the Saquon deal. At his age, tops, what does he have left in the tank? 2 to 3 years? Could his team win a championship in the next 2 to 3 seasons with Barkley? I don't believe so. That's an interesting one, De Illa. I think the Philadelphia Eagles in the past 11 games have underperformed in conjunction with what kind of roster they have over there. If the Eagles get shit right, they absolutely have a roster that can win the Super Bowl. And if they add more pieces next year, there's even more of a possible chance. I don't think that they're a front runner for that in the NFC, but what other teams are? Maybe the Minnesota Vikings, the Detroit Lions, the San Francisco 49ers, who started off 2-2, I believe. The NFC is rather wide open. I like the statement on not sweating the Saquon deal, and I do agree that at his age, I wouldn't say tops 2 to 3 more years, but if we gauge it on an average, you would say that Saquon probably has about a good 2 to 3 more solid years left before his productivity would take a dip. But there are running backs that have defied the odds, Frank Gore being one of them. So I'm not 100% sure. I like the reasoning behind everything you said, though. Adam says we dodged no bullet. Lou Mateo says I always feel organizations can manipulate the cap, so that's why I don't understand it. Definitely feel you, bro. Definitely feel you. Mr. Zoe says the illa facts. Adam says the Eagles are 4-2, and he's responsible for at least 3 of those wins. Some would say responsible for the loss, too, when he dropped the ball on 4th down. So you're looking at a guy, if Saquon makes that catch, the Eagles' record right now is sitting at just 1 loss. There's a lot of football left. The Dallas Cowboys have a treacherous schedule coming up. I don't know about the Philadelphia Eagles so much. D. Torres says the injury comment is exactly right. Got to wait and see. It'll be exactly right if he gets hurt. And we all know the saying, if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. Got to go off what's happening right now. The hypothetical situation that Saquon gets hurt, maybe out for the year or something like that. Well, yeah, of course that's going to look great. That would have looked great after week 1. But that's not currently what's happening right now, and I don't wish that injury upon him either. Lucas says we will put money in O-line to protect Daniel Jones. If they put money in earlier, it might have protected Saquon as well. Another good point. Another good point. Patrick Johnson in the building one time says, NYG fam was good. What's going on, dog? Hope all is well with you.
Okay.
And then added, we suck. You ain't never lied. You ain't never lied. And that if was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. That's from my homie right here. That's from my homie right here, bro. All right, let's get off into this next giant overreaction. We're going to try to keep this to 2 hours and 3 minutes or 30 minutes here, and then I'll get y'all up out of here. This next one's going to be about the quarterback position. Let's get to it. All right, now, this one comes from the homie. Let me scroll down. This is from Cool Lane Hero. He says, he added this at the beginning of it. I clipped it a little bit shorter. He says, season's over. Daniel Jones doesn't need to start another game. Can't let him get that injury clause money. Let me know if you think this statement is an overreaction and Daniel Jones should be able to finish out some of the games for the rest of this remainder of the season. You can represent that by putting a U in the chat if you agree. Or if you think that this statement is an overreaction, you can put an O in the chat to represent that it is indeed an overreaction. Now, Daniel Jones has a $23 million injury guarantee for 2025 if he does not pass his physical come springtime. At the end of this football season, the Giants will owe Daniel Jones $23 million no matter what happens, on top of his salary if he is still a New York Giant, which will be $40 million. If you cut Daniel Jones, if he's injured, you're still going to have to take the $20 million dead cap hit. And if he's injured, you're going to still have to pay that $23 million injury guarantee, which would be $43 million, which is a few million over what Daniel Jones' cap hit would be if he remained on the roster. At that point in time, it might serve you exactly the same to keep him on the roster. So for me, I got to say that this statement from Cool Lane Hero is spot on. You should not play Daniel Jones another game. Brian Dable came out and said that Daniel Jones will likely be the starter. He didn't say will likely. He said he will be the starter against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think they need to go back to the drawing table and see what Drew Lock would look like with an extra day, because the New York Giants play on Monday night, to prepare with the ones and go out there and see what Drew Lock gives you in a full game with this New York Giants offense. If you remember the Denver Broncos, they benched Russell Wilson just last season in the final weeks of the year to avoid triggering a $37 million guarantee for his injury clause. The Raiders also did it with Jimmy Garoppolo to avoid paying $11 million with the injury clause. And they also benched Derek Carr to avoid paying a guaranteed salary in 2023 that was $32.9 million. The New York Giants have an out on Daniel Jones' contract at the end of the season that could save them $19.4 million if they cut him. This is our opportunity at the end of the year. And like I've been saying for the past couple of weeks, do not be reactive. Don't wait for Daniel Jones to go out here and play some decent football. Be proactive. Make the decision right now. Save your coaching job, Brian Daboll, and put Daniel Jones on the bench. It'll also give you more leadway to tank the season. That's what it is. And then possibly you can be here when the New York Giants draft their quarterback. We shall see. Let me see what the chat is talking about here. I see a couple of mixed opinions on this one. Let me see. We'll start with. Oh, we got a lot. We got a lot of votes on this one. I see. We got a lot of votes. I'm scrolling back. All right, here we go. Deedon Shelton is taking the under. He agrees with the statement. Big Dog agrees. SOS agrees. E Banks agrees. John agrees as well and says, I just realized the Zedu has TJ Watt next week. Holy shit. Joe is definitely getting fired after the Steelers' loss. And that's a good point, man. I think they need to experiment with Evan Neal somewhere on this offensive line this week. Maybe move Jermaine Illuminor to left tackle and bring in Evan Neal to play right tackle. Give him a shot before it's, too late. You're going to part ways with a guy who was a top 10 draft pick anyway. Bergs is taking the under as well, says that injury clause will absolutely crush the salary situation we have here. Talking Eco's taking the under. Fans who care about money should agree with this. Adam taking the under. Welvin is taking the under. Uzi L says, we weren't winning with Barkley either. No disrespect to Uzi, but I think that this is one of the most foolish type of logics to have when thinking about this situation. The idea of building a great team is to stack great players. We have not been winning with Dexter Lawrence. Should we part ways with him and let him walk in free agency? Should we have not paid him the cornerstone contract that we gave him? We were losing with Andrew Thomas as well. Should we have allowed him to not sign a contract and maybe walk in free agency as well? What about guys like Brian Burns, Malik Nabers, Bobby Okereke? We're not winning with them either. Should we just clean house and allow all these guys to walk? Or do you keep the young pieces that you have on this roster? I think that this is just I don't know who convinced Giants fans that this is a smart way to think. It damn sure wasn't me. But Uzi, all opinions are welcome here. Like I said in the beginning, no disrespect. I just think that this is not a very rational, sound way of thinking when it comes to building a roster. But who am I? I'm just another fan just like you. RedX3R0 says he's taking the under. If he gets the clause, everyone needs to be fired. I completely agree with you on that. Royal Money Entertainment taking the under. Corey Pate taking the under. Deilla NYG says, so I never really understood what Philly was trying to accomplish there. And Swift started off slow, but he's on track now. I think Swift got about $5 million. Maybe Swift got a little bit more than that. I think he got about $5 million from the Bears. I think it was the type of running back that DeAndre Swift is. Saquon Barkley is better suited for what the Eagles do. But Swift had you remember how he started off last season? He had like a damn near 200-yard game or something like that. Kenny G, the best saxophone player in the whole damn nation, is taking the under. Dean is taking the under. Capital G taking the under. Real Cold G taking the under. Kareem Yee taking the under. Most people taking the under on this one. Hector, let me try and enunciate this one here. Gigliotti, I hope I said that right, says, whoever says, oh, let me get what you smoking. That might be some, what was that? The bath salt that they were smoking? That might be some White Rock. I don't know, but I don't want nothing to do with it, Hector. You feel me? Hyphen Wade said he's taking the under. El Scorcho is taking the under. Let me see what Hyphen Wade said there. Hyphen Wade said, as much as I would hate to see Drew give us another one of those signature performances, screw it, I guess. I feel you, because you don't want to see Drew Lock come in here and possibly find a way to win a couple of games and walk us out of a quarterback situation. Mr. Zoe said, LOL, he's definitely getting that injury clause money. Azidu blocking his blind side, man, this organization is stupid. Lou Mateo is taking the under as well. I'm good with going with Locke or Tommy. Fuck that. I don't want DJ screwing us any more than he has been. I feel you. High is in the building one time. What's going on, High? Taking the under. Absolutely no reason to play him in this season that's already lost. Chaz G said the Steelers' defense is going to obliterate that, man. No Mets, no Nets, no Jets says he's taking the push. The injury clause equals he has to pass a physical in the offseason. He can get injured. However, it can't be a serious injury. Yeah, it can't be something like an ACL, or you don't want it to happen towards the end of the year. That's a good point and a good reason to take the push. Chris Peace is taking the under. No need to play him anymore, although I said that in 2023. Strider says, let's get real about Daniel Jones. jumped on me there a second. He says, if fans love DJ Love so much, then they have to learn to let go. Ooh, because it's not working out. Stop forcing it because it makes no sense. Good point, bro. Good point. We got a U from Money Mitch, a huge U from Tone Blue. Adam says someone should ask how long is he the starter? He was benched once. It will happen again. Kevin the PRF says little overreaction. You're asking Joe Shane and Brian Dable to possibly wave the white flag on their jobs unless Locke comes in and changes the offense. Shouldn't the injury clause apply to first overreaction? You know, me and Kevin just see the game very different. I don't know if you remember the conversations we had about Sam Howell last year and how to approach the quarterback situation with the Washington Commanders and whatnot. We totally saw that situation totally different as well. But to me, if Joe Shane puts Daniel Jones on the bench, they're not waving the white flag on their jobs. They're waving the white flag on this season, which is what they should do. They need to go to John Mara and have an honest conversation and tell John Mara this season is cooked. Let's go to Drew Lock. Let's protect the injury clause. Address the quarterback situation right now and be proactive like I've been saying. Go into next year. Do the organizational tank. I don't root for that much, right? But do the organizational tank. By any means necessary, play all your young players. Get everything you can get out of this roster from a youth standpoint. Go draft your quarterback next year, and that'll buy you a little bit of extra time to be able to have a young quarterback on this roster, bring in a bridge quarterback, and maybe you can buy yourself another 2 years here as the head coach and as the general manager for the New York Giants. I see that way different, bro. John says 19.4 savings, but $23 million dead cap hit. Yeah, that all goes into one. The $23 million dead cap hit is the $19 million left over from the dead cap hit. You're going to pay him $40 million to be on the roster this year. So if you can protect the injury clause, I'm all for it. Mr. Mini Guy also coming in with the U to represent. He's taking the under. 1T says benching Daniel Jones isn't going to save anyone's job. It's saving the next guy's dead cap. I think there's a Hail Mary shot here, 1T, because if you keep Daniel Jones in here and he gets injured and you have to pay the injury clause and the New York Giants don't win games, say goodbye to your job completely. If you go out here, wave the white flag on the season, bench Daniel Jones, protect the money, protect the injury clause, come with the plan right now that, listen, we fucked up. We got to go into next season and draft a quarterback and see what we got in this roster. You might be able to salvage your jobs. You might be able to. And I think that John Mara has this lingering thought in the back of his mind that, man, I've been firing head coaches and firing general managers left and right since they've been here. Maybe that will be reasoning to not pull the trigger on firing these guys so fast. But the productivity and the results are calling for that. Adam Costa says, I think the best way to tank is to leave DJ in. Likely. I think Drew Lock can maybe bring a better spark than Daniel Jones. He obviously will throw the ball down the field. Lucas says he's taking the push a little bit early for me. I'm torn on this one. Wouldn't be upset if we did it. I'm there with you. Sonny is taking the under, put DJ on the bench, save the money, tank the season, get your quarterback, and buy Dable and Joe 2 to 3 more years. That's exactly how I feel on it. Some more use from Malik. DeIll talking about how Swift was a monster early on in the season. Yeah, I remember he had those 2 monster games, I remember, and it kind of flattened out a little bit. Chaz G said crack. Nick P says Saquon is a luxury, and on this team, he would not be as productive. Don't look at how successful he's been with Philly thinking he would be the same. We don't know. It's a hypothetical situation, but this offensive line for the New York Giants is clearly much better. Clearly. You could argue that the New York Giants have a better offensive line than the Philadelphia Eagles right now. You could argue that. But we'll never know. We didn't make that move. Strider says you. Nick P says you. Ben Aris taking the push. You don't surprise me, Ben. I know your vibes. Ben says DJ need to change his contract regarding injury clause or at least minimize it by $10 million. That is an option. That is an option. You could go renegotiate that injury clause, but Daniel Jones seems bitter and spiteful right now. He's probably going to want to keep every dollar he can get. Yeah, and a bunch more U's. I see a bunch more. So this one didn't split the room as much as we thought. I'm definitely taking the under on this one. Put him on the bench. Put him on the bench. Move forward with a backup quarterback. I'm sick of even having these conversations on the Giant Overreaction about should we bench him? Ben should have benched him. Lucas says, so from Mara's perspective, this front office would lose Daniel Jones and Saquon in consecutive off seasons. Ouch. Joe, hope that resume is up to date. That's not including McKinney either. Don't forget about bringing in Darren Waller and paying for that contract and having that dead cap hit of $7 million as well, and having to address tight end every damn year that you have been here. John Falcone says, bench him. It's not worth the risk. Right there with you. Right there with you. Let's get off into this last but not least Giant Overreaction so I can get y'all out of here so y'all can enjoy the rest of your Monday afternoon and not have to suffer with this misery of talking New York Giants football for so long. Appreciate all y'all for being in the building. All right, this one's about the coaching staff and the front office. The Costas says, I want one Giants fan to tell me with a straight face Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen should get a fourth year. Oh, man. I got to keep it real with y'all. Y'all know I don't like to call for people's jobs. That's not my vibes. I wish nothing but success upon Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll. My buddy Chosen Juan, known as @Sports and Stiff, said on Twitter, we didn't pay Daniel Jones $40 million a year to hand the ball off. Clown show. Daniel Jones threw the ball 21 times in this game. 19 of them were in the first half. Brian Daboll is now 1-10 against the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm starting to point the finger a little bit more at Brian Daboll. I still have faith that he could be a good play caller. In an ideal situation, which is not ideal here, I would love to keep Brian Daboll on as the offensive coordinator for another year. And possibly bring in a new head coach. And maybe promote Brandon Brown to the general manager position. But that's very unlikely. That's probably not going to happen. And I can't fault the homie the Costas here for saying this. Because I don't think any Giants fan could tell you with a straight face that Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen especially, should get a fourth year with the New York Giants. Let me see what the chat talking about here, and then we will get y'all up out of here. We'll start here with Ayo Sheed. Oh, man, shout out to Colleges Make You Dumber. I see you back in the building. What's going on, bro? He's taking the under on this one. Ayo Sheed says it's an overreaction. Erica's taking the under. Shout out to Erica one time in the building, been rocking out with us. 1T says he's taking the under. They should make it through the season. He doubled down on it. Royal Money Entertainment says it's an overreaction. I see this one is splitting the room a little bit. Chaz G says, sheesh, that's cold, but it isn't unwarranted. Big Dog Status says, I'm going to have to take the U, bruh. I'm with you. Red X3R0 is taking the under, says team is quitting on Daboll and Shane's decisions are very questionable. Corey Pate says he's taking the overreaction on this one. Adam Costa's taking the under. Welvin says it's an overreaction. I blame the quarterback. Think Joe Schoen's drafts are getting better. The 2024 draft class has looked much better. Malik Nabers, Andrew Phillips, Tyler Nubin's been okay. Theo Johnson been Tyrone Tracy, when they give him a chance to run the ball, has been really good. I agree with you on this one, Welvin. The overreaction part, not so much, because I can't fault Giants fans for wanting these guys up out of here. I get it. The results have not been there. Colleges Make You Dumber says absolute trash. Dean says he's taking the push, and I think this is a very fair take. I need to see Daboll with a real quarterback, but Shane, he can hit the dusty trail. He's on some bullshit. SOS Archive says it's a bit of an overreaction. Money Mitch says you would think for someone that knows he is on his last leg would put up a better fight. Jones has no heart. Get him off the field ASAP. Adam Costa says Daboll is a dead man walking. Hyphen Wade says he's taking the push. I really feel like Joe is weighing down the situation more than Brian is. I totally agree with you on that. However, Daboll has to find a way to make something work on this side of the ball. Otherwise, what the hell? And I do fault Daboll for not being able, as the head coach, to salvage the relationship with Wink Martindale, although Shane Bowen has been really good for us as of late. But that's something that a head coach, you should be able to have damage control and be able to, salvage those relationships with people that are important to this team. I think we got a little bit lucky with Shane Bowen, who's been pretty decent so far. Let me see what else we got. Chaz G said, can we demote Joe? I would like to see what our assistant GM can do. Yes, Brandon Brown would be a much better GM, I think, than Joe Shane has been thus far. Berg says he's taking the push. I think this yearly backward slide is really bad, but so is the quarterback, so it's really hard to tell if they'll be better with a new quarterback. I agree with you on that. Real Cole G says, it's an overreaction. Some of Shane's picks are contributing. Let them. Schizoid Asshole says, it hurts me to say push. I believe without Daniel Jones, they could have built something special here, but you can't erase the mistakes you make. Good point. Chris Peace is taking it under. Fire them all. Clean house. Start over. Do it right. 3 years later, and Joe Shane is looking as sus as Dave Gettleman. Kevin the PRF is taking the under on this one, says both should be fired. That's the Band-Aid Mara should rip off. I agree with you on this one, Kevin. The Ball Walker says he's taking the push. I personally believe these two can get it done, and I think the framework is there. But I understand those that want a new regime so long as we get it right. I should really take the push because this is probably the perfect take for me right here. Shout out to Ball Walker. Bookend Tackles is taking the under. E-Banks and GA is taking the push. I really feel like Brown would be a better GM, and we would still have Saquon. Ayo Sheed says Dable and Shane inherited Jones. It's possible. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on this one, Ayo Sheed, but they gave him the new contract. But there is the possibility that Merrill might have forced their hand. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that one. Journey says that would never happen. Dable's pride is too big to get demoted in the same organization. I hear you. That's a good point right there, Journey. John says, how does Ben Johnson draw up creative plays for his offensive line, but Dable can't do shit for the weapons he has? It's sad as fuck. If Ben Johnson was available to be a head coach, I would totally be on board for that. The last 2 seasons, he has went back with his team with no problem after taking interviews. RedX3R0 says elite quarterbacks save jobs and enrich everyone. Great point. Real Cole G says I'm taking the push, but my gut says to take the under. Kareem Yee taking the push. It's time to wake up. Shout out to his time to wake up one time. Says Daniel Jones is the greatest quarterback of all time. Shout out to his time to wake up. I sense sarcasm, but you never know. Woodshed 1914 says they all got to go, bro. Taking the under. SOS Archive says it's a big overreaction. Kenny G's taking the push. I'm not completely out on them, but I'm at a point of not caring if they get fired. There's good and bad, but not good enough to win consistently. Good take. Ben Harris is also taking the push. If they can't win 7 games at minimum, it's over for Dable. Good coaches can find a way to win 7 to 8 with bad situations. Shout out my dog, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets. It's taking the under. But what top coaching and general manager candidates would come here? Why come here? We might be stuck with these guys. That's another good point. John Falcone says, slight overreaction. The only thing I did want to see is Dabes with the quarterback he wants. Agree. Deaton's taking the push. I really think Mara forced DJ on them. It's possible. 59 Ways to Groove says Brown and Dable would cook. I don't doubt it. I'm Rich taking the under. Mobster Music taking a super under. Says, fuck no, fire them both. Bookend said he ran the ball with a running back, 3 times in the first half? Yup. 2 of those to Tyrone Tracy, 1 of them to Devin Singletary. That was pathetic. College Makes You Dumber says, what up, dog? Mr. Mini Guy taking the push. Ryan Wood said he wouldn't be upset at either outcome. El Scorcho says there's no reaction, tired of new coaches and general managers all the time. I hear you. Luis R is taking the under. Nick P taking the over. The Illa says I'd be fine with Brandon Brown taking over and leaving Dable in place. Probably not possible with them being a package deal. Agree? No Met says Joe Shane and DJ are the same. They both had one okay season. That's true. Kevin the PRF says taking the under, part 2. Firing both now makes the roster nuke from the second overreaction. Makes full sense. I'm with you on that. RedX3R0 says I'll push on the 2024 because we thought we hit a gem with Tibbs. Yup. Overreaction from Tone Blue says we've seen the same thing through 3 coaches. That's true. SOS Archive says I can't blame Dabes, bro. DJ is the worst quarterback. Tolu is in the building. What's going on, Tolu? Hope all is well, fam. Says he's taking a push. I don't see Dable and or Shane as culture changers. but I won't know 100% until I see this team without Daniel Jones. Great reason to take a push. Bookend Tackle says Vrabel and keep DC. Oh, talking about Vrabel. I'm thinking Vrabel is a defensive mind. That's why I thought that. So you're talking keep Shane Bowen, who was under Mike Vrabel already, and bringing Mike Vrabel as the head coach. Not mad at that at all. I'm gonna do some digging into this. This is good stuff, Bookend. Love that. Nick P says DJ is going to kill another coach and general manager's job, and he doesn't care. It's all his fault. I love the statement. Can't put it all on Daniel Jones. Got to put some on the owner. Got to put some on the general manager. Ball Walker says it would be interesting if Shane got fired. We kept Dable and promoted Brown. It really would. It really would. And a lot of great comments here. I see a bunch of comments from y'all. Red X3R0 says we told Russell Wilson he was going to be the backup instead of competing, so he booked it to Pittsburgh. It was a smart move by him. D. Torres says he's taking the push. We need to see this regime with a competent quarterback who doesn't limit the play calling offensively. A lot of great points, man. A lot of y'all kind of reiterating this point in particular. This is a really good one. SOS Archives coming in hot with the 199 super chat. Says, all 22 shows open receivers. Dabes isn't the quarterback. And I really can't wait to get off and take a look at that. That's what I'm going to do. Spending the rest of my Monday afternoon is looking at small 22. Let me see. Sonny says it's an overreaction also because we first got Dable as a quarterback guru and we're planning on drafting one anyway. But we got stuck after Saquon declined offer at bye, making us tag DJ instead of either way around. I kind of see what you're saying there, but they tagged Saquon, not Daniel Jones, and gave Daniel Jones the contract, which was not smart, but I can dig it. I understand the take. I respect it. And last but not least, no Mets, no Nets, no Jets with the 499 super chat says, we saw Dable without Daniel Jones, Tyrod, and DeVito. Shout out to Authentic in the Beard. Yeah, we did. And Tyrod Taylor looked pretty decent. And Tyrod is, a serviceable backup in this league, but I don't think anybody will build their organization around him. So kind of shows that Brian Dable could do some things when he had competency at the quarterback position. 1T said, who said they needed to tag anyone? Yeah, they really didn't. They didn't need to tag anyone. They didn't. I would have let Daniel Jones test the free agent market and see what teams would have offered him and likely let him walk. I know it wasn't the popular opinion at the time, but that's what I would have done. 1T also says, a lot of excuses for Dable sound like but the O-line, but the weapons, but Jason Garrett. It does feel a lot like that. And I do think people are making up a lot of excuses for Brian Dable. And sometimes you like somebody said earlier, you got to rip that Band-Aid off. And maybe we don't need to see Brian Dable with a younger quarterback to develop to be able to find out that, he's not the guy. It's unfortunate. It really is. Let me scroll and make sure we got everything we need to get. Yeah, we got them all. Shout out to all of y'all, man, pulling up, rocking out with me today. I know it's a tough day. Biceps in the chat one time. Spam the biceps if you've been here since the beginning of the stream. Salute to all of y'all. For those of y'all that are going to be watching this on the replay, give me a gasoline emoji to let me know that you representing as the replay gang one time. But shout out to all of y'all, man. I see y'all. Big Dog Status, Red X3R0, Journey, Schizoid Asshole, Mr. Mini Guy, No Mets, No Nets, No Jets, Kareem Yee, Bookend Tackles. I see y'all, man. Appreciate all of y'all rocking out with me today. What a difficult day to be a New York Giants fan, and I wish I could tell y'all that things are going to get better moving forward, but they likely aren't. But we're going to continue to be here on this small corner of the internet, talking our shit and trying to make this as entertaining as possible. I think that this week in particular gives me a little bit of more ammunition to finish out the first episode of the documentary that's going to be based on quarterbacks. Promising to have y'all that before the bye week. I want that content to live and last for a long time. So those stories need to be stories that have legs, and I don't want it to just be a one-off type of episode. I want people to be able to go back and watch that for years to come. And when the Giants do get back, to our glory days of competing and trying to get after these Super Bowls, we can look back at that episode and that documentary, with a smile on our face and understand where we came from. But salute to all of y'all, man. Y'all know that I could do this content without y'all, but it would never had the kind of legs that it does without y'all. And I would just be up here just by myself talking ball to nobody. So in reality, I really can't do this without y'all. Big salute to y'all. Like, means the world to me that we have built this family over here on Authentic in the Beard. And it's going to be a fun show tomorrow with the Beard. He's going to get to come up here and celebrate the Commanders sitting still at the top of the division. Big win with Marcus Mariota at the quarterback position. And they're proving that Cliff Kingsbury was the right man for that offensive coordinator job. So we'll see how it goes. Make sure you pull up. To all the new faces in the building, if you liked what you saw today, make sure to hit that subscribe button on the way out as we try to build this thing and keep trying to raise this bar over here at Authentic in the Beard. I will be on Bleacher Report on Wednesday doing a midweek show previewing the Pittsburgh Steelers game if you want to check me out over there as well. And Thursday we'll be back with another preview show for Week 8. And I don't know where to start with that. Pittsburgh Steelers coming in hot. It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And here we are just 7 weeks into the 2024 season. So we got a long way to go, y'all. But bear with me. I'll bear with y'all. I'll try to make this experience with the New York Giants moving forward as best as I can. Salute to y'all, man. Y'all know how we end every stream over here at Authentic in the Beard. Keep raising that bar. Keep living those dreams because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound, and a life without dreams is a life in black and white. Rest in peace to the podcast GOAT, Combat Jack. Keep dreaming, y'all. One of these days, the New York Giants are going to get right. It's not today. Hang with us, man. Y'all know what it is. I appreciate y'all spending y'all time with me almost 3 hours today on the Giant Overreaction. And shout out to everybody that sent in the super chats that go a long way to support this channel. That definitely means a lot. And y'all don't have to do that. You don't have to spend your hard-earned dollars. I wish nothing but a speedy week upon y'all. I know how it is when your team loses and you got to go to work and show up and see these Dallas Cowboys fans and these Commanders fans and these Eagles fans, more importantly, who are going to get to gloat and celebrate this victory. But hang in there. We're going to try to get right. Y'all know what it is, man. I appreciate y'all. Y'all nothing but the world to me. Definitely. And I'm very fortunate to be able to talk ball as a part of my living now. It's crazy, and I couldn't do that without y'all, man. Big salute to y'all. I'll catch y'all on the next edition of the Giant Overreaction. Y'all be good. Enjoy the rest of y'all Monday afternoon. Peace, y'all.
Spike don't care.